Chapter 1436. The enemies in front of them all had their cultivation lowered by 1 realm. How powerful must they be to do that? Now was not the time to explore this question. They immediately launched a charge and attacked these enemies. Because the cultivation of the other side was suddenly suppressed, the other side was also caught off guard. They didn't have the chance to properly display their fighting strength. This allowed the disciples of the Dark Knight, Holy Land, to gain the upper hand, which made them very excited. After forcing the hunters to retreat a few dozen feet, the hunters quickly stabilized their formation and began to gather their strength again. They were evenly matched with Fei Yi and the Dark Knight, Holy Land. After a while, they began to gain the upper hand and forced Holy Lord of Dark Knight, Fei Yi, and the others to retreat. These hunters wandered around the periphery of the divine world all year round. They had experienced countless big and small battles. Their combat experience was very rich. Moreover, they had decent fighting strength. So, it was normal for them to be able to force Holy Lord of Dark Knight, Fei Yi, and the others to retreat. Holy Lord of Dark Knight, Fei Yi, Vine Demon, and the others were once again forced to the corner. They could only defend tenaciously and temporarily had no power to attack. Kid, I admit that you do have some tricks up your sleeve, but that's all. Baldy didn't make a move. He was calmly watching the changes on the battlefield. After seeing the reversal and counterattack again and again, he slowly said to Xiaoyang. Only after Baldy's words spread did Holy Lord Dark Knight, Fei Yi, and the others understand that the reason these hunters' cultivation realms were lowered was because of Xiaoyang. This made them very shocked, and their hearts trembled. At this moment, Xiaoyang hadn't made a move yet. He was like a stabilizing needle. They felt more at ease. They believed that as long as Xiaoyang made a move, all the problems would be solved. Although the hunters had the upper hand and were fiercely suppressing Holy Lord of Dark Knight, Fei Yi, and the others, they were all shocked when they heard about Xiaoyang's powerful abilities. One had to know that there were dozens of them. King Wu level 5 and King Wu level 6 experts. But even so, Xiaoyang was able to suppress all of them and lower their cultivation by 1 realm. Just the thought of such a terrifying phenomenon was enough to make one feel terrified. Thus, they all looked at Xiaoyang in shock. Seeing that Xiaoyang had no intention of attacking them, they breathed a sigh of relief. Thinking about it, on their side, the Baldy hadn't made a move yet. It could be considered a form of restraint. Xiaoyang blinked, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. He looked at Baldy with a faint smile and said, "Is that so? Baldy, I think you've misunderstood me." After saying that, Xiaoyang once again manipulated the flying ship's formation, causing fog to appear in the area where the hunters were. This fog was extraordinary. Even the powerful hunters would be poisoned if they breathed in this fog. In severe cases, one would instantly fall into a coma, while in mild cases, one would feel dizzy. All of a sudden, a lot of hunters were hit. They staggered and stood up. Many hunters directly fell to the ground. Be careful, the mist is poisonous. Don't breathe it in. Some of the smarter hunters quickly discovered that there was something fishy going on and hurriedly shouted out. However, after he shouted this sentence, he also fell down. The remaining hunters hurriedly stopped breathing. As powerful cultivators, it was fine even if they didn't breathe for 3 to 5 days. However, although they didn't breathe in the white fog, because they breathed in a little just now, it made them a little dizzy, and their combat strength decreased sharply. Kill. Holy Lord of the Dark Knight, Fei Yi, and Vine Demon saw this excellent situation and immediately burst out with shocking battle cries. Then they bore the brunt and instantly rushed to kill these enemies. Yi San Yi 19, and the others followed behind and crazily killed the enemies. If they couldn't defeat them in the beginning, then it would be fine. But now, Xiaoyang had helped them twice, completely suppressing the hunters, robbers, and bandits. If they still couldn't defeat these enemies, then they would be too useless. Xiaoyang's calm gaze fell on Baldy. The corner of his mouth turned, and he said indifferently, "Baldy, do you see? That's why I said that you misunderstood me." Baldy naturally saw everything in front of him and knew Xiao Yang's methods. He couldn't help but frown and coldly snort. His expression was unfriendly. The murderous intent in his eyes was extremely dense, and he didn't hide it at all. In any case, this trip was for the airship. As for Xiao Yang and the others, they could be killed or not. Since Xiao Yang and the others were courting death, then he would fulfill their wish. Baldy thought so. Therefore, he didn't continue to wait. Because of Xiao Yang, the overall battle situation was quite unfavorable for them. The reason was very simple. It was because of the airship. Xiao Yang controlled this powerful flying ship and used the power of the flying ship to suppress them, so they fell into a disadvantageous position again and again. Baldy understood that everything depended on himself. He couldn't count on those guys anymore. "Xiao Yang, I admit that you have some tricks up your sleeve, but that's all." After saying that, Baldy's figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was in front of Xiao Yang in an instant. He didn't know what strange ability he used, but his entire hand instantly turned pitch black and directly pierced towards Xiao Yang's heart. If he was stabbed, Xiao Yang would be seriously injured on the spot. Good movement technique. A light voice drifted out. Xiao Yang was already a few steps away. He had a smile on his face as he leisurely spoke. At the same time, Baldy also stabbed Xiao Yang's afterimage, causing it to disappear instantly. Baldy thought that he had hit his target and thought that Xiao Yang wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. But after hearing Xiao Yang's voice, his expression changed. He suddenly turned around and looked at Xiao Yang with a stern expression. "Good kid, Dai." This time, Baldy didn't approach. Instead, he used a 6-meter-long cage spell to directly trap Xiao Yang in it. This cage was instantly created. Pillars of light rose up around Xiao Yang. These pillars of light quickly merged and formed an airtight cage. "Kid, let's see how you can laugh now." "Haha." Baldy laughed complacently and looked at Xiao Yang with contempt. He didn't put Xiao Yang in his eyes at all. He thought that he would definitely win this battle. He was determined to win and had a card up his sleeve. Xiao Yang was indeed surprised to be trapped in a 6-meter-long cage. This divine ability was quite durable. Xiao Yang liked it at first sight. Chapter 1437. Baldy, your 6-foot cage is not bad, but if you want to use it against me, you're wrong. Xiao Yang chuckled and summoned the Heavenly Qin Mountain. The Heavenly Qin Mountain was as big as a flying ship. It was as big as a continent. After the Heavenly Qin Mountain's main body appeared, it instantly caused the cage to explode. The light of the cage was like glass. With a bang, it shattered and gradually dimmed, turning into nothingness. What? When the Baldy saw the 6-foot cage being destroyed, he could not believe it. He stared at Xiao Yang with his eyes wide open. He knew very well how powerful and terrifying the 6-foot cage was. Even he could not break it. It was obvious how powerful Xiao Yang's attack was. Ha! Xiao Yang chuckled coldly and controlled the Heavenly Qin Mountain to crush King Wu's rank 7 Baldy. This momentum was so great that it was like thunder rumbling from the 9 heavens. Wherever the Heavenly Qin Mountain passed, even the void was distorted. It was as if it could break through the seal of space. The Baldy was shocked again. "This is the Demon Clan's Heavenly Qin Mountain." The Baldy cried out in surprise. As a member of the surrounding territories of the God Realm, he naturally knew a little about the Demon Realm. Therefore, he recognized the Heavenly Qin Mountain at a glance. "You're just a human. How can you refine the Demon Realm's Heavenly Qin Mountain? That's unbelievable." The Baldy was shocked. He was very emotional. Although the Heavenly Qin Mountain was powerful, as someone of the same level, he was not necessarily afraid of it. The Baldy instantly used the wolf smoke skill and turned into a wisp of smoke. He disappeared on the spot. He was so fast that the naked eye could not catch him. He was even faster than lightning. When he reappeared, he was hundreds of thousands of feet away. He had just avoided the crushing and attack of the heavenly Qin mountain. Kid, you want to defeat me? You're still too young. After dodging the attack, Baldy couldn't help but grin, revealing a smug expression. However, in the next moment he was dumbfounded. He realized that his position did not change. He was still in the same spot. It was as if the wolf smoke skill had never been used. He was at the spot where the heavenly Qin mountain had crashed into. How is this possible? He was dumbfounded and in disbelief, because he was certain that he had clearly used the beacon smoke technique to leave, and had clearly moved extremely far away to avoid the opponent's attack. But he had discovered that he hadn't. This puzzled him, and at the same time terrified him, because this matter was too strange. Help! The Baldy did not have time to think. The Sky Qin mountain crushed his body. This was the power of an entire continent. It was comparable to the full blow of King Wu at the 7th level. Even though the Baldy was a level 7 almighty like King Wu, he had almost died after being hit by the Sky Qin mountain. The defensive light barrier on his body shattered, followed by his many defensive magic treasures and defensive divine abilities. All of his methods were crushed and disintegrated by the heavenly Qin mountain. Even he himself had suffered a heavy blow. Wow! He couldn't help but spit out blood. His figure was sent flying several hundred feet away. His body fell to the ground with a thud, making a dull thud. If not for his tenacious spiritual will, he would have fainted at this moment. The Baldy suddenly felt that it would be better if he fainted, because at this moment he could not move at all. His body was severely injured, his meridians were broken, and his dantian was shattered. This was worse than killing him. He did not dare to imagine what kind of torture he would suffer if he fell into Xiao Yang's hands. Xiao Yang laughed coldly, took a step forward, and instantly appeared beside the Baldy, looking down at him from above. Baldy, do you still think you're in control of everything now? He raised his right hand and condensed a devouring light. As long as he attacked, the Baldy would be destroyed in an instant. This made the Baldy feel a strong sense of death. He knew very well that his life was in Xiao Yang's hands at this moment. He immediately panicked. Indeed, he still did not beg for mercy. After all, he was a level 7 King Wu powerful being and naturally had his own dignity. Once he begged for mercy, he would be looked down upon by others. Baldy, did you think you'd end up like this when you came to kill me? Xiao Yang smiled faintly. The Baldy coughed, and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He said, Kid, I've lost to you. Whatever you say is what it is. Do it. I'm not afraid of death. Oh, you've got quite the backbone. Xiao Yang laughed sarcastically. Then he asked, Baldy, was it unrivaled God who told you about our whereabouts? The Baldy was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, That's right, it was unrivaled God. He continued, There are countless people who know about this. Just the territories around the God realm alone number in the hundreds. Even if you manage to avoid us, you'll definitely fall into their hands. Xiao Yang said, This unrivaled God is really interesting. The next time I see him, I'll make him cough up some blood. This murmur fell into Baldy's ears, and Baldy almost thought that he had misheard. Everyone knew that unrivaled God was King Wu's rank 8 Almighty. He was a high and mighty figure. Who would dare to provoke him? When they saw unrivaled God, they would have to lower their heads and bend their knees. This Xiao Yang was very bold. The Baldy sneered, Kid, don't be so conceited. You're capable if you can defeat me. But if you want to defeat unrivaled God, don't even think about it. You can't imagine how good and terrifying he is. Xiao Yang looked at the Baldy calmly and said, Baldy, your meridians are broken. Even if I don't kill you, you won't be able to fight. If you don't die in my hands, you'll definitely die in the hands of other enemies. How about we make a deal? What kind of deal? The Baldy asked. Who would want to die if they could live? I can help you restore your meridians and cultivation base, and you'll have to lead the others to escort us out of here. How about that? Xiao Yang asked calmly. This was a win-win deal. As long as the Baldy agreed, he would be able to keep his life, and Xiaoyang would have another powerhouse to escort him along the way. The Baldy did not think about it for too long and agreed immediately, saying, "All right, I'll agree. However, I know that once your cultivation base is destroyed, you're basically useless. Unless you encounter a miracle pill, you won't be able to restore your cultivation base for the rest of your life. Do you have such a miracle pill?" Xiaoyang chuckled and said, "You don't have to worry about that. Just agree." Then he took out an explosive pill and handed it to the Baldy. Chapter 1438. He said, "This pill is called the explosion pill. After you consume it, not only will it recover your cultivation, but it will also help you increase your cultivation by 1 level. However, it will only last for half an hour." Is there really such a miraculous pill in this world? The bald man was shocked and could not believe it. Confused, he took the explosion pill from Xiaoyang and swallowed it. Just as Xiaoyang said, after he consumed the explosion pill, his cultivation recovered and increased by 1 level, reaching the 8th level of Kingwu. This made him very excited, and his eyes were filled with excitement. He even had other thoughts in his mind. This was the change in mentality after gaining power. Previously, he could not defeat Xiaoyang and was defeated by Xiaoyang. However, this time, with the help of Xiaoyang's explosion pill, his cultivation reached the 8th level of Kingwu. This was something that had never happened before. After reaching this level, he felt an earth-shattering change in his power. This shocked him, but at the same time he was incomparably happy and excited. Therefore, he thought about whether he could turn the tables. Turn the tables, reverse the situation. This was what the bald man thought. Previously, when he was defeated by Xiaoyang, he was very unwilling. However, in order to live, he could only kneel on the ground and kowtow to Xiaoyang to beg for mercy. Now he wanted to take revenge and let Xiaoyang know what was good for him. A cold light flashed in his eyes as his cultivation aura gradually grew stronger. Even his aura gradually became more terrifying. If that was all, it would not be a big deal. However, the problem was that his hands had already started to form seals, gradually brewing a terrifying storm. If this terrifying power exploded, even Xiaoyang would not be able to escape unscathed. Just as the bald man was about to attack recklessly, he heard Xiaoyang's voice. Xiaoyang smiled and said calmly, "Bald man, think carefully. You only have 1 chance. If I can give you wealth, I can also make you poor." After hearing this, the Baldy hesitated. Just as Xiaoyang had said, since Xiaoyang could help him without any hesitation, he naturally had the means to suppress him. After all, Xiaoyang was not a fool. "Baldy, if you feel unreconciled, you can give it a try. It's always better to have regrets, isn't it?" Xiaoyang calmly advised. How was this stopping? He was clearly waiting for the other party to make a move. But the more he acted like this, the more Baldy didn't dare to move. This was because his every move was seen by Xiaoyang. Even his thoughts were clearly grasped by Xiaoyang. "If you're not going to do anything, then just follow us quietly and escort us out of here. When the time comes, I will continue to give you the explosive pill," Xiaoyang said calmly, not at all worried that Baldy would suddenly explode and hurt people. Baldy's aura gradually weakened, and his cultivation aura also slowly retracted. His hands that were originally forming seals also slowly stopped. He felt that he wasn't Xiaoyang's opponent. Even if he had advanced to the 8th level of Kingwu, he still didn't have the confidence to defeat Xiaoyang, so he didn't dare to gamble. Xiaoyang saw that he had given up on the idea of making a move, then said, "Baldy, since it's like this, then feel free to call the others. No matter whether we were enemies or not, we have the same goal along the way, right?" Baldy nodded helplessly, and his gaze fell on the battle area. The battle area was on the flying ship. Although they had a large number of people and their overall strength was tyrannical, under the suppression of the flying ship, they still couldn't take down Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Fei, Vine Demon, and the others. In addition, Xiaoyang was now in control of the entire situation and even his life, so he didn't dare to have any other thoughts. Everyone stop for the seat, Baldy suddenly shouted. This voice was accompanied by the release of his cultivation power. When the people he brought heard his voice, their movements suddenly paused, and then they all stopped and gradually retreated from the battlefield, no longer fighting with the people of the Dark Night, Holy Land. As they retreated one after another, Holy Lord of the Dark Night and the others also breathed a sigh of relief. In the fierce battle just now, they had suffered a lot of pressure. Many of their cultivators had been seriously injured, and even if they weren't injured, they were now very weak. In the battle just now, they had consumed a lot of spiritual power. If those guys hadn't retreated, they probably wouldn't have been able to hold on. After letting out a sigh of relief, they didn't care too much about other things, and immediately sat cross-legged on the ground to start healing. Alai and the others had already retreated behind Baldy. They saw Baldy's respect for Xiaoyang, and also saw Baldy bow down to Xiaoyang. This made them very confused, because they all knew that Baldy was very powerful. As a 7th-level cultivator of Kingwu, he could almost crush Xiaoyang and the others by himself. But he actually bowed down to Xiaoyang. In addition, he also ordered Alai and the others to stop. Although Alai and the others couldn't take down Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Vine Demon, and the others in a short time, they weren't at a disadvantage. As long as they had enough time, they would definitely win, because Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Fei, and the others couldn't hold on any longer. But he didn't understand why Baldy did this. Boss, we were clearly going to win. Why did we retreat? Alai asked unwillingly, representing everyone's thoughts. The others also looked at Baldy, waiting for his explanation. Baldy snorted and said, "Stop talking nonsense. Whatever I say is the truth." As his words fell, a terrifying power was released from his body, directly hitting Alai. Alai cried out and spat out blood, and his whole body was instantly sent flying. He flew back dozens of meters and crashed heavily on the ground, immediately causing serious injuries. When he fought with Holy Lord of the Dark Night on the flying ship, he didn't suffer any injuries, but now he was directly injured by Baldy. His heart was extremely cold. When the others saw this, they also showed disappointment in their eyes. The reason why they followed Baldy was, firstly, because Baldy's cultivation was strong, and secondly, because they hoped that he could protect everyone, so they respected him as their leader. But they didn't expect that Baldy didn't protect them at all, and only enjoyed the treatment of a boss. Once his interests were damaged, he would immediately attack them. Seeing Alai sent flying, Alai and the others asked unwillingly, "Boss, Alai didn't do anything wrong. Why did you treat him like this? Even if he didn't do anything, at least he worked hard." "That's right, boss. Alai didn't do anything wrong." Many people spoke up for Alai, but in fact they were speaking up for themselves, because they didn't want to be seriously injured like Alai one day. Chapter 1439. As Alai and the others questioned him, they angered the bald man. After the bald man scoffed coldly, he once again released terrifying energy that hit Alai and the others, turning them into a mist of blood. They died just like that. When the others saw this, they were all scared out of their wits. Their faces turned pale and their eyes were filled with fear. They didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. That was the terror of a strong cultivator. As long as they were strong enough, they didn't care if you were right or wrong. As long as they suppressed you, it was enough. Now, who else wants to say something? The bald man roared and stared at them coldly. His eyes were filled with terrifying, murderous intent. When they saw his eyes, they couldn't help but tremble and their hearts filled with fear. They lowered their heads in fear and didn't dare to meet the bald man's gaze. A bunch of trash. The bald man scoffed coldly and his eyes were filled with disdain. He didn't think anything of them. Saint Lord of Darkness, Fei Yao, and the others saw this and were shocked. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The bald man was their biggest enemy. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, the bald man would become Xiaoyang's loyal guard? One must know that he was a terrifying cultivator. Even someone as arrogant as Saint Lord of Darkness didn't dare to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Then, a joyful expression appeared on their faces, and they all laughed out loud. The bald man's loyalty meant that they had won the battle. They were now out of danger. All of this was because of Xiaoyang. They admired Xiaoyang from the bottom of their hearts. Xiaoyang didn't say much about the bald man's cruel methods. All he wanted was the other party's submission. Xiaoyang was very satisfied with the bald man's actions. After the bald man suppressed his unwilling subordinates, he turned around and faced Xiaoyang. A smile appeared on his face as he said, "Fellow Taoist, this is the extent of my loyalty. Please understand." Very good. I have seen it all." Xiaoyang softly smiled and said calmly. Then he waved at the bald man. "Let's go. Let's go together. I'll have to trouble you on the way." "It's no trouble, no trouble," the baldy hurriedly said in a flattering manner. He was now defeated by Xiaoyang. How could he admit that Xiaoyang was bothering him? Although Xiaoyang was indeed bothering him, Baldy could only think that this was something he should do. Xiaoyang took back the flying ship. Holy Lord of Dark Night, Fei Yi and the Vine Demon flew back to the side. As for Yi Shi San, Yi 19, and the others, because they were severely injured, they stayed in the flying ship. Brother Xiaoyang, you are the savior of our Dark Night Holy Land. We are very grateful. We will give you a temporary elder token. You will be an elder of the Dark Night Holy Land from now on. However, you don't need to do anything. You just need to enjoy the benefits of an elder. The Dark Knight, Holy Lord, took out an elder token and handed it to Xiaoyang. This was one of his ways of thanking her. Xiaoyang had helped him so much that he didn't know how to repay him. Xiaoyang looked at the token in front of him. He originally wanted to refuse, but after thinking about it, he reached out and accepted the token, because this would make the other party feel better. "Then I won't be polite." Xiaoyang smiled. "Greetings to Elder Xiaoyang." The voices of Yi Shi San, Yi 19, and the other disciples of the Dark Night Holy Land came out from the flying ship. Although they were recuperating in the flying ship, they knew what was happening outside. Therefore, when Xiaoyang accepted the token and became an elder of the Dark Night Holy Land, they were all excited. Because Xiaoyang was too awesome and always created miracles, they couldn't wait to tie themselves to Xiaoyang. Holy Lord of Dark Night's action had undoubtedly developed Xiaoyang into one of their own. Yi Shi San, Yi 19, and the others couldn't wait for Xiaoyang to be one of their own forever. Xiaoyang smiled at their cheers and shouts and gestured with his hand. Only then did he say, "All right, rest well and recover. I'll bring you all back now. Let's go, Baldy." Xiaoyang called out to Baldy. Actually, he didn't know Baldy's name, but seeing that he had a bald head, he called him Baldy. The group continued on their way, heading back to the flowing cloud boundary. After walking for half a day, they immediately met another group of robbers. The leader of this group of robbers was also a powerful existence at the 7th level of King Wu. "Baldy, what are you doing?" When Chun Mingho saw Baldy, a puzzled look appeared in his eyes as he asked in confusion. When they found out about Xiaoyang's whereabouts, Baldy's group had already set out to intercept Xiaoyang. They thought that Xiaoyang, this prey, had already been captured by them. They didn't expect Baldy to stand on Xiaoyang's side and become Xiaoyang's guard. That was why Qin Mingho was shocked. Baldy also saw Qin Mingho. The moment he saw Qin Mingho, he felt a moment of shame in his heart. The reason was simple. Everyone was in this line of work, robbing and robbing. In the end, he was captured by his prey. Needless to say, how embarrassing. If it was just a simple capture, it wouldn't matter. The important thing was that when he was captured, he was seen by an acquaintance. Even his face was lost. Baldy couldn't tolerate this. Therefore, he immediately exploded and shouted at Qin Mingho. "Qin Mingho, I'm different from you. After meeting fellow Taoist Xiaoyang, I've turned over a new leaf. From now on, I'll be a righteous person and fight against evil robbers like you." Haha. After hearing Baldy's explanation, Chun Mingho and the other robbers couldn't help but laugh. For a heinous person to suddenly declare that he wanted to turn over a new leaf, this was a fantasy. Ever since they started in this line of work, they had never thought of being a good person. Baldy, you're really making me laugh. Chun Ming-ho couldn't help but laugh. He mocked. You want to be a good person? Come on. Who doesn't know about your character? Baldy, I'll give you a chance. If you surrender to me immediately, I can give you the position of second in command. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. After Chun Ming-ho laughed, he began to persuade Baldy to surrender. Baldy hesitated for a moment. He was tempted for a moment, but he quickly suppressed it. Logic told him that Xiao Yang could give him more. TSK, Chun Ming-ho, stop pretending. If I say I'll be a good person, then I'll really be a good person. Stop talking nonsense. I know very well why you're here. If you want the flying ship, then hurry up and do it. Baldy glanced at Xiao Yang and immediately made his decision. After shouting at Chun Ming-ho, he immediately released his cultivation aura and raised his aura at the same time. Chapter 1440. Ignorant. Chun Ming-ho's face was gloomy as he snorted coldly. Then he immediately unleashed his 7th Order Martial King cultivation and charged towards the bald man. His goal was the airship in Xiao Yang's hands. This time, he could only succeed and not fail. He couldn't fail. Who asked him to be the leader just now? Since he was in this position, he needed to show the corresponding merits and strength. Otherwise, no one would obey him. If he could succeed today, then no one would dare to say anything bad about him, and those old fogies would no longer deny his ability, let alone refute his suggestions. Therefore, Chun Ming-ho really couldn't do this. His attack was very heavy. As soon as they met face to face, he immediately erupted with all his strength, not showing the slightest bit of mercy, even if he was acquainted with the Baldy. After the bald man felt Chun Ming-ho's killing intent, the corner of his mouth curled up and he sneered. Then he began to circulate his spirit energy without restraint and began to fight Chun Ming-ho to the death. The two fought fiercely. They were evenly matched, and neither was willing to give in to the other. Because their fighting strength was very strong and their destructive power was also very shocking. In order to avoid hurting the innocent, they ran thousands of feet away to fight. Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Vine Demon, Fei Yi, Yishir San, Yi 19, and the others asked Xiao Yang to fight. They already knew the purpose of Chun Ming-ho and the other bandits, so they didn't hold back. Even if their overall fighting strength wasn't as good as theirs, they weren't afraid at all. Using their motto, even if they died, they would die on the way, Xiao Yang waved his hand and stopped them. The reason was simple. If he really wanted to fight, he didn't need Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Vine Demon, and the others. He could handle it alone. In any case, Chun Ming-ho and the others only had one 7th Order Martial King expert. The rest of them were no match for them. Even if Baldy didn't restrain Chun Ming-ho, Xiao Yang could easily kill Chun Ming-ho. After Holy Lord of the Dark Night, Fei Yi, and the others were stopped, they didn't pester endlessly and didn't insist on fighting. They didn't refute Xiao Yang and didn't show any dissatisfaction. Instead, they obediently retreated and waited patiently. If it was in the past, they would not have been so obedient. However, after experiencing so many things with Xiao Yang, their reverence for Xiao Yang was ingrained in their bones. Xiao Yang's words were like a holy order that they subconsciously obeyed. Even though Xiao Yang was an honorary elder of the Dark Night Holy Land and Holy Lord of the Dark Night Holy Land was the leader of the Dark Night Holy Land, Holy Lord of the Dark Night Holy Land had to listen to Xiao Yang's orders and opinions. Because they didn't fight and Baldy didn't let his subordinates fight, it was just Baldy and Chun Ming-ho's battle. The reason why Chun Ming-ho didn't order his subordinates to attack was because he needed to prove his strength and prove that he had the qualifications to sit in the boss's position. As for his subordinates, even if they called him boss on the surface, many of them were disloyal and did not completely submit to him. Therefore, his orders would be greatly discounted. If this were to happen in this war, he would definitely be laughed at by Baldy. The outcome of this battle rested on Baldy and Chun Ming-ho's shoulders, so they fought with all their might. It was also a very bitter battle. Baldy was beaten until he spat out blood and his eyes were bloodshot. Although he had known Qin Mingho before and understood Qin Mingho's strength to a certain extent, this battle once again refreshed his understanding of Qin Mingho. He didn't expect Qin Mingho to be stronger than he imagined. However, Baldy was not to be trifled with. Although he was injured, he also injured Qin Mingho. This valiant battle strength also shocked Qin Mingho. It was as if the two of them were seeing each other's true strength for the first time. Baldy, I didn't expect you to hide so deeply. I underestimated you before. Qin Mingho withdrew his martial skill and shouted at Baldy with an unfriendly expression. Because of his misjudgment of Baldy's strength, it made things a lot more troublesome. It was unrealistic to want to take down Baldy in one go. That was why he shouted angrily. Baldy laughed loudly. How could he not be angry about Qin Mingho's previous actions of hiding his strength? He also sneered and mocked. Qin Mingho, are you that shallow in your ability to hide? Let's not laugh at each other. Anyway, we're all the same. Why don't you let us go today, and I'll pretend that nothing happened today. How about it? Baldy was quite open-minded. He wasn't angry about what happened just now. Instead, he smiled and comforted him. Don't even think about it. After hearing Baldy's suggestion, Qin Mingho didn't even think about it and immediately rejected it. He came here for the airship, to defeat Baldy, and to capture Xiaoyang and the others. If he left here with his tail between his legs, wouldn't it be a slap to his own face? After an angry roar, Qin Mingho revealed a smile on his face and said, Baldy, that was just a small test of my skills. Do you think my fighting strength is only at this level? Then you can wait for your failure. As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Mingho's aura changed abruptly and became even stronger than before. Half a step away from King Wu level 8? After feeling the change in Qin Mingho's cultivation aura, Baldy's expression changed and he spoke in shock. At least Qin Mingho's methods were very impressive. However, he wasn't scared yet. Baldy, how do you feel? Are you going to admit defeat or wait for me to make a move? If you wait for me to make a move, you won't have a good ending. If you admit defeat now, I'll still give you a chance to rely on me. After Qin Mingho felt his cultivation and strength, he let out a sigh of relief. His confidence soared. He admired Baldy. If he had Baldy's help, his position as the boss would be even more secure. Therefore, he didn't mind giving Baldy a few more chances, hoping to recruit him. Baldy laughed coldly, and his eyes were full of contempt. He said, disdainfully, Qin Mingho, that's all you've got. You've shown your biggest trump card. Now it's my turn. You still have a trump card? Qin Mingho was shocked and couldn't believe it. If Baldy really had a trump card, then it would be even more difficult. Even if Qin Mingho had used the secret medicine and advanced a half a step away from King Wu, he still wasn't confident that he could defeat Baldy. Moreover, there was a time limit to his advancement. The time limit was only half an hour. After half an hour, he would suffer a backlash. This was the result of forcefully increasing one's cultivation. Baldy laughed and took out the explosive pill that Xiaoyang gave him. He raised his head and swallowed it. Immediately after, his cultivation level broke through. From King Wu level 7 to King Wu level 8. This was a real breakthrough. Chapter 1441. The sudden change left Qin Mingho dumbfounded. He had not expected Baldy to have such a secret technique. Although the two of them did not have much interaction, they were both in the same line of work. Usually, they would mind their own business. However, they were both afraid that one day they would run into each other, so they would still try to understand each other. The reason why Qin Mingho dared to recruit the Baldy as his second-in-command and stabilize his position as the big brother was because he had a secret technique that allowed him to suppress the Baldy. But now, Baldy had eaten some kind of elixir. He was now King Wu's level 8, while he was only half a step away. Although it was only half a step away, the slightest mistake could lead to a huge difference. How was he going to play this game? Chun Mingho's heart was bitter. Chen Mingho, you didn't leave when I told you to. Now, you don't even have the chance to leave. Baldy looked at Chen Mingho with a mocking smile. Chen Mingho suddenly felt the pressure in his heart increase. He knew that if he turned and ran now, he would be humiliated to the core. If his reputation was ruined, how would he be able to suppress his subordinates who did not obey him? Thousands of thoughts flooded Chen Mingho's mind, making him feel like he was sitting on pins and needles. Baldy was not in a hurry to attack, because the effect of the explosive elixir lasted for half an hour. He had an absolute advantage in strength, so he did not mind waiting. Baldy took the elixir. He is just a paper tiger. Why should I be afraid of him? Chun Mingho thought to himself. Baldy had borrowed external strength, so he would not be able to withstand a single blow. Chun Mingho's secret technique was based on his own strength. Naturally, his strength could not be compared. Humph! Chun Mingho's disdainful smile made him even more determined. He roared angrily and rushed towards Baldy. As long as he could defeat that incomparably powerful force, Baldy would naturally be defeated without a fight. He would use the remaining time to snatch the airship. That would be a logical thing to do. Come on! Baldy saw that Chen Mingho was not going to give up until he saw the coffin. He immediately used his own body to collide with Chen Mingho. Although Baldy had experienced this force before, he had never used it in a real battle. This was what he wanted to try now. As the three parties watched the clash between the two of them, they all had different expressions on their faces. Xiao Yang, on the other hand, looked very relaxed because he knew that Chen Mingho had underestimated his opponent. He did not know how powerful this explosion pill was, so he was so reckless. Of course, this did not rule out the possibility that the other party was staking everything on this one throw. Boom! When the two forces collided, countless explosions rang out. Even the space around them was constantly exploding under the collision of these powerful forces. Waves of energy rippled out one after another, but their power was not to be underestimated. Anything that got close to them was immediately turned into dust. Chun Mingho's body fell from the sky like a comet. As for the Baldy, he floated in the air with an ugly expression on his face. This strike had already determined the outcome of the battle. A half step was only a half step after all. How could it be compared to a true level 8? Seeing that Chen Mingho had been defeated, his restless subordinates started to become restless. After Chen Mingho stabilized his body, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. He never thought that Baldy, who had used external forces to forcefully increase his realm, would be so sturdy instead of inflating his strength. This didn't make sense at all. Chen Mingho, I'll give you a chance now. How about you be my second in command? Baldy said in a relaxed manner. Although Baldy looked relaxed, he had also suffered some internal injuries. It was just that he hid them very well. This sentence could be said to be returned to Chen Mingho. This was a great humiliation. Chen Mingho's heart was also filled with sorrow. He had said that this was a chance for him to soar, but who would have thought that he would lose all his face? He looked at his subordinates again, and they all seemed to be looking down on him. A wise man did not fight when the odds were against him. Chen Mingho also understood this principle. As long as he was still alive, he would have a chance to get back at them. He turned around and ran. Baldy helplessly shook his head when he saw that Chen Mingho was running away. At the same time, his hands began to form seals. 60 feet cage. Suddenly, a cage appeared around Chen Mingho, trapping him inside. The impact also caused him to bounce back. Then, the bald man reached out his hand, and the cage immediately turned around and landed beside him. As the saying goes, the winner takes all. Chen Mingho was infuriated and could only look at Baldy. If looks could kill, then Baldy would have been sliced into pieces without leaving a trace. I'm very patient. I'll give you another chance. How about it? Baldy said with a chuckle. When these words fell into Chen Mingho's ears, it felt like mockery. The taste of it was very uncomfortable. Baldy then casually removed the cage and whispered in Qin Mingho's ear, "Brother, don't say that I didn't bring you along when I got rich. You've seen my strength, right? It's all because of the pills Xiaoyang gave me. Follow me, and I won't mistreat you." When Qin Mingho heard these words, he was shocked. What kind of pills could actually raise someone's strength by 1 level? This wasn't a small level. It was extremely difficult for King Wu to raise his cultivation level by 1 level. How terrifying was it to be able to do so just by using pills? Qin Mingho looked at the young man, his eyes filled with disbelief. "If you agree, I'll go and plead for you. If you don't, whether he wants you to live or not is not up to me," Baldy said in a low voice. For a moment, Qin Mingho was still in shock. That ordinary-looking young man was just too terrifying. He finally understood why Baldy was reduced to a bodyguard despite his tyrannical strength. So it wasn't what he thought, but to save his life. If he didn't lower his head, he would die. Did Qin Mingho still have any room to bargain? If he didn't agree, only death would await him. However, Qin Mingho could also feel that this was an opportunity. If he could follow such a person, he would naturally be able to gain a lot of benefits. In the end, Qin Mingho smiled and said, "Thank you, brother." Previously, they were still bickering. Now, they were calling each other brothers. "You understand." Baldy smiled slyly and continued, "Let's make it clear. You're my second in command. You have to sign a contract." Qin Mingho was speechless. However, in order to survive, he had to do as he was told. Baldy immediately went to find Xiaoyang. Chapter 1442. Baldy looked at Xiaoyang fawningly and said with a chuckle, "Boss, Qin Mingho's ability isn't weak either. If he joins us, he'll be of great help along the way and save us a lot of trouble." Qin Mingho was King Wu rank 7. His ability was similar to Baldy's, so he was not to be underestimated. Since unrivaled God had spread the word about Baldy's possession of an airship and the use of it, there would probably be many more robbers along the way. It seemed like a good idea to have an extra helper. "Boss, I'm really sorry. I made him my second in command to satisfy my selfish desires and forced him to take a blood oath. Please forgive me." Baldy recalled what he had done in a moment of excitement when he saw that Xiaoyang was silent. If this incident really angered Xiaoyang, then Baldy's plan would not be as simple as a mistake. Instead, it would be completely ruined. Holy Lord of Dark Night, Fei Yi, and the others didn't say a word. They didn't have much right to speak on this matter. However, to them, having an extra helper was still a good idea. After all, it would be difficult for Xiaoyang to fight his way into the Luyun realm from here alone. Seeing the Baldy's face filled with nervousness and fear, Xiaoyang calmly laughed and said, "That's not a problem. 1 more friend means 1 more path." Xiaoyang had seen how powerful Qin Mingho was. If Qin Mingho and Baldy worked together, they would indeed be able to save a lot of trouble along the way. Baldy secretly sighed in relief when he saw that Xiaoyang was not angry at him for acting on his own accord. This also made him even more convinced that the person he was following was very generous and would not be calculative with them at all. Following such a person made her feel at ease. "Then I'll ask him to bring his men to meet you, boss." After Baldy finished speaking and saw Xiaoyang nod, he gave Qin Mingho a look. Immediately, Qin Mingho's heart was filled with joy, and he immediately ran towards his troops. "Qin Mingho, you piece of trash. You can't even take down Baldy. We're not going to follow you anymore. Don't even think about leading us to submit to a fat sheep that we've set our sights on." One of the cultivators who had always been unconvinced by Qin Mingho mocked him. Qin Mingho's reputation in this group was not high to begin with. Now that he had been humiliated, his original subordinates were even more dissatisfied with him. Why would they submit to him? He even said that he'd follow you and snatch a flying ship to enjoy life in the God realm. Looks like he's just SO. That's right. King Wu's rank 7. You can't even defeat Baldy. Who do you think you are? For a moment, there was a lot of ridicule. Qin Mingho clenched his fists and gnashed his teeth in anger. He was a tiger after all. Tiger's a tiger too, as he's a tiger after all. After those people felt the strong pressure, their faces turned pale and they subconsciously took a few steps back. Indeed, King Wu's rank 7s was not something they could fight against. But in the next moment, Chun Mingho suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood. His face was pale and he looked like he was about to collapse. Chun Mingho's was up. Now he was suffering from the pain of the backlash. His had fallen, his bloods had reversed, and his spirituals had collided. Trash is trash. When one of them saw that Chun Mingho's had suddenly fallen, his courage grew again. There was no fear or panic at all. Chun Mingho sneered in his heart, but there was a hint of desolation in his heart. Now that he was seriously injured, they were no longer yes men. Instead, they attacked with heavy blows. Baldy saw that the situation was not right and immediately flashed over to stand between Chun Mingho and the group of people. Xiao Yang could only shake his head, helplessly. The people Chun Mingho brought along were really practical. However, they were unwilling and there was no need to force anything. If they want to leave, then leave. These few words relieved those people of a heavy burden. Now that Chun Mingho was suffering from the backlash, Baldy and the rest could easily take care of them. Scram! Baldy was unhappy, but since Xiao Yang had spoken, he could only let this group of ingrates go. When those people heard this, they also fled in panic. Baldy saw that those people had left and helped Chun Mingho to Xiao Yang's side. Chun Mingho cupped his fists and said, "I have offended you. Please forgive me. Take this, and you'll be fine." Xiao Yang threw an explosive pill at him. Xiao Yang was naturally able to guess what Chun Mingho's current state was. Right now, he was suffering from the backlash of using the secret technique. Naturally, the explosive pill would be able to solve the problem of his blindness. Chun Mingho took the pill, and his eyes flickered slightly. When he saw Baldy's determined gaze, he immediately took it. Immediately, a gentle medicinal power swept through every part of his body. Immediately, the pain of the backlash and the regression of his cultivation level began to disappear. Soon, Chun Mingho felt that his cultivation level had reached the 8th level of King Wu. For a moment, Chun Mingho was even more shocked in his heart. This kind of effect was a bit too overbearing. Just who was this person? And why did he have such a divine pill in his hands? This was the first time he had heard of this name. Immediately, Chun Mingho knelt on the ground and said, "I will never forget your kindness." "It's nothing. This explosive pill only has an hour's effect. However, it's more than enough for your injuries to recover," Xiao Yang said. Originally, Chun Mingho was so excited that he had divinized the effects of the pill. He thought that it would allow him to advance to the next level. But when he turned his head, he saw that the medicinal effect of the pill had passed. Although his cultivation level returned to its original level, there was no backlash at all. This was a little scary. A pill that could increase one's strength sharply without any side effects. This could also be called a miraculous pill. Now, Chun Mingho was completely convinced. He finally understood why Baldy would follow Xiao Yang. Everything was because of strength. This was the most important point that made people willingly submit. Originally, Chun Mingho was still a little unconvinced and sarcastic. But now, he prostrated himself in admiration. "It's your first time feeling the 8th level. You better experience the wonders of it properly. This will be beneficial for your breakthrough in the future," Xiao Yang said with a smile. Chun Mingho nodded. Immediately, he sat down cross-legged and started to feel the difference between King Wu's 8th level and 7th level. Xiao Yang steered the flying ship towards the flowing cloud world. Chapter 1443. Under Xiao Yang's instructions, Holy Lord of the Dark Night and the others also entered the airship to cultivate. After all, they might not be able to deal with the upcoming situation. Although they could still gain experience, they might have to pay a high price. They could even be sure that the enemies that would appear next would not be much weaker than Baldy and Chun Mingho. They might even be much stronger than them. Of course, if there were some small fries, it was fine to let them train themselves. An hour passed very quickly, and the medicinal power in Chun Mingho's body gradually dissipated. He seemed to have gained something, and a very satisfied smile appeared on his face. Chun Mingho saw Xiao Yang standing at the bow of the airship and quickly walked over. He bowed and said, "Thank you for giving me this opportunity. It allowed me to become half a step into King Wu's 8th level. From now on, no matter if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, I will not refuse." This was a pleasant surprise for Chun Mingho. This also strengthened his determination to follow Xiao Yang. Moreover, in such a short period of time, he was able to make such great progress. If it was someone else, would it be possible? If he continued to follow him in the future, there would naturally be many benefits. When Baldy heard this, he couldn't help but feel sorrowful. He didn't expect this guy to have such an opportunity to become half a step into King Wu's 8th level. This made him feel a little helpless about his second in command. It's a small matter, but since your level has increased, you will naturally have to contribute more to the enemies we meet next, Xiao Yang said lightly. However, Chun Mingho could actually become half a step into King Wu's 8th level. This was indeed unexpected. This was also a good thing. If Chun Mingho became stronger, wouldn't it be a guarantee for him? If Chun Mingho was sincere in joining, there was no harm in grooming him. Who knew, he might be a great help in the future. Baldy helplessly rubbed his bald head. He had a feeling that he had fallen out of favor with Lin Feng. Your intelligence network is pretty good. Tell me, from your information, who are the people who will come to rob us? Baldy asked, hitting the nail on the head. Xiao Yang also slightly nodded his head. With regards to this issue, he was rather concerned. After all, if you know yourself and your enemy, you will never be defeated. You can also be prepared. Chun Mingho thought for a moment and said, "As long as there is a King Wu in the surrounding star fields, all the 7th Order hunters are eager to make a move. But these people are not enough to reach the apex. After all, Baldy and I alone can take care of most of King Wu's Tier 7 enemies. If it's a little more troublesome, with the help of your elixirs, even if King Wu comes at the 8th level, we can still beat them back." Hearing this, Xiao Yang nodded in satisfaction. If that was the case, he didn't need to do anything and could safely return to the flowing cloud world. But at the same time, Xiao Yang also felt that Chun Mingho had released his divine sense, seemingly wanting to explore his true strength. You can also give it a try if you don't want to die. I can also tell you that I am King Wu's Tier 7. Xiao Yang's voice suddenly became cold and released a trace of killing intent. When these words came out, Baldy's face couldn't help but change. Chun Mingho, this brat has guts. Chun Mingho also immediately lowered his head and withdrew his divine sense, not daring to be presumptuous. "I was just curious. I hope you don't blame me," Chun Mingho said with lingering fear. Xiao Yang only snorted coldly and disappeared from the bow of the ship, leaving only one sentence. "I will return to the flowing cloud world safely and will naturally be rewarded. If you are uneasy, you will be cut into pieces." After a while, Baldy slapped Chun Mingho's head and scolded, "You dog, are you trying to cause trouble? Since boss gave you an opportunity, it's because he thinks highly of you. You actually covet other people's things. Are you trying to cause trouble?" Baldy said as he hit, and even felt that it wasn't enough to vent his anger, so he even kicked Chun Mingho's body. Chun Mingho also endured being hit and scolded like this. He knew that this time he went a bit overboard. Moreover, he could also feel Baldy's anger. This time, he really dug a hole for himself and jumped into it. He felt bitter in his heart. He originally wanted to show off his skills, but in the end, he ended up digging a hole for himself. "Baldy, what do we do?" Chun Mingho said helplessly, "What do we do?" Baldy also helplessly shrugged his shoulders. Baldy and Xiao Yang didn't have much time together, but he believed that Xiao Yang wasn't a narrow-minded person. This time, he was probably just warning Qin Mingho to not cross the line. After a while, it would naturally be fine. Xiao Yang found a place to sit down on the flying ship and prepared to cultivate. Of course, as for what Qin Mingho and Baldy were doing at the bow of the ship, he naturally knew. After all, he hadn't known these two for a long time, so he still had to pay attention to their words and actions. If they really had the intention to harm him, then Xiao Yang would definitely not be soft-hearted. However, the actions of the two just now also made Xiao Yang laugh. These two were simply a pair of buffoons. With Baldy and Qin Mingho at the bow of the ship, there wasn't much to worry about. So he directly entered a state of cultivation. Now that Xiao Yang's level had risen to King Wu's level 7, he wanted to try and see if he could refine the remaining quarter of the flying ship and use it for himself. If he could fully control the airship, then his strength would naturally be greatly improved. Although Xiao Yang could control it now, he couldn't completely control it and use it for himself. In fact, Xiao Yang was even more curious about whether the remaining quarter would give him any surprises. Wanting to completely refine the flying ship for his own use was undoubtedly a very large project, and it definitely wouldn't be an easy task to complete. Even though Xiao Yang's level had increased a lot compared to before, it was still very difficult to completely refine the remaining quarter. In fact, even the current progress was extremely slow. Xiao Yang wasn't in a hurry, as it was a good thing to be able to continue refining it. One day, the control of the flying ship would naturally fall into his hands. Time flew by, and not long after, there were once again hunters who came out to clamor and prepared to rob the flying ship. This group of people was also very large, with about 20 people. The weakest among them was King Wu level 5, and there were even 2 level 7 ones. Chapter 1444. Under Unrivaled God's Promotion. The airship's usefulness had become very prominent, making people very envious. After all, if they could obtain an airship, they would be able to obtain a pass to the God Realm. If they could obtain some opportunities after entering the God Realm, it would be all they could wish for. They could even soar to the top. If they could catch Princess Mingzhu's eye, their status would be as different as the clouds and mud. Naturally, they would be able to obtain many benefits when the time came. Moreover, other people would hide their airships well after obtaining them. They were either major organizations that they could not afford to offend. However, rumor had it that the owner of this airship was only King Wu rank 7. Moreover, he was wandering around the star zone openly. Was this not giving them an opportunity? It could be said that many hunters were lying in ambush at different checkpoints. Some were even on their way here, ready to rob. After seeing the robbers outside, Xiao Yang had no intention of showing up at all. He only used a wisp of divine consciousness to observe. The group of hunters hadn't even spoken a few words when the bald man and Qin Mingho rushed out and started to fight with them. Both of them used to be in this line of work. Naturally, they knew the temper of their peers very well. It was almost impossible to intimidate them and scare them away with words. Instead, fists were the most powerful words. As they had angered Xiao Yang previously, they had a belly full of anger in their hearts. Qin Mingho was already half a step away from King Wu rank 8. Naturally, it was easy for him to deal with them. Immediately, people from both sides swarmed forward and started fighting. However, it did not take long for the group of robbers to be defeated. The other party had suffered great losses as well. A rank 7 King Wu was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Xiao Yang was very satisfied with these two fighters. They were very decisive. They would not waste time talking nonsense with you. They would just beat you away. That was their style. With these two clearing the way, as long as it was not those old fellows who had not shown themselves, they would be able to defeat them. Xiao Yang was also doing his best to refine the airship. During this period of time, he had made a huge breakthrough. The original quarter had now become 1/5. In his spare time, Xiao Yang would give some guidance to the Anya clan in their cultivation. As time passed, Xiao Yang and Baldy began to get familiar with each other. Gradually, Xiao Yang gained some understanding of them. However, The Dark Knight, Holy Lord, also reminded Xiaoyang that he had to be on his guard. After all, these two fellows were not weak. If they were planning something big, the consequences would be immeasurable. Xiaoyang smiled faintly, not taking it to heart at all. Qin Mingho and Baldy working together was indeed very difficult to deal with. However, he believed that Baldy would not dare to act blindly without thinking. After all, the battle back then was enough to let the Baldy understand how terrifying the gap between their strength was. The further they went, the stronger the opponents they encountered. There were even a few times when Baldy had to use an explosive elixir to barely defeat the enemy. However, this kind of news had also spread out, causing even more people to retreat. Normally, there would only be one stage 7 Martial King Hunter, and they would not dare to come forward. On the other hand, there were some powerful people who kept coming and causing trouble. Although the enemies were constantly coming, Xiaoyang didn't have to make a move after having 2 hired thugs. He just needed to continue driving the airship forward. Along the way, there were constant battles. With the help of the explosive elixir, Baldy's strength was faintly approaching the 8th level of a half-step King Wu. When Xiaoyang heard this news, he also had a slight headache. However, Baldy did not have any intention of rebelling. He looked harmless and could even be described as a bootlicker. The more this was the case, the more Xiaoyang had to be cautious. After all, these two people were born as bandits. If they really disregarded everything and broke the contract and fought, it would be a big problem. Fortunately, cultivators also paid attention to certain things. As long as they were not forced into a corner, or if there was a greater opportunity in front of them, they would not easily break the blood oath. After all, when the time came, they would have to face a level that they would not be able to break through in their lifetime. On this day, Xiaoyang sat at the bow of the airship to rest. Once again, a few people appeared to block their way. Those people were all wearing white robes with strange patterns embroidered on them. They looked a little like lightning, but also like dragons and snakes. The strength of these people was not low. The weakest among them was a 6th order martial king, while the strongest one was so strong that Xiaoyang could not see through his cultivation. Although there were only a few of them, they were undoubtedly the strongest bandits Xiaoyang had encountered. Suddenly, Xiaoyang's expression changed. He immediately stood up and prepared to fight. Although Qin Mingho and Baldy were not weak, it was almost impossible for them to end the battle quickly. Although they felt the strength of the other party, their momentum was also very sharp due to their continuous victories. Without the slightest hesitation, they rushed out and prepared to sweep away these obstacles. At this time, an old man walked out with a smile on his face. He said, "May I ask if this is Taoist Xiaoyang's airship?" The old man looked very kind and did not have the slightest hostility. It was as if he was preparing to be a good host. "Two children, don't be in a hurry to make a move. We're not here to pick a quarrel and snatch the airship." The old man saw Qin Mingho and Baldy rushing over, and still said very kindly. Qin Mingho and Baldy did not feel the slightest hostility. This made them immediately stop attacking. However, they were very puzzled. What was going on? Xiaoyang looked at the old man and frowned slightly. After thinking carefully in his mind for a while, he could not remember who the old man was. He did not seem to have any friendship with him. However, it was possible that some bandits wanted to worm their way into being friends, and then take advantage of the other party's laxness to launch a surprise attack. Xiaoyang smiled indifferently and said, "I am Xiaoyang. May I know why you are blocking our way?" Although Xiaoyang was also smiling, he, Qin Mingho, and the others did not let down their guard. The temptation of the airship was too great. Many people felt that they could not defeat it, so it was very possible for them to use some tricks. People's hearts were sinister and had to be guarded against. "I'm Tianbinu of the Thousand Thunder Realm. Recently, I've heard that fellow Taoist Xiaoyang's strength is unparalleled and that you've been invincible all along the way. Therefore, I admire you and want to give you an opportunity. That's why I've been waiting here." The old man was still smiling innocently. Chapter 1445. blocking his path and giving him an opportunity? Xiaoyang really didn't expect such a move. Looking at Tian Bunu's kind appearance, it seemed like he was really sacrificing himself for the sake of others. Xiaoyang had been to many places, so he naturally knew how people were like. Moreover, in cultivation, opportunities were extremely important. Normally, in order to obtain an opportunity, it could be said that everyone would fight until their heads were broken and blood was shed. Swords and sabers would be used against each other, and even to the extent of deceiving each other to determine life and death. Now that such a great opportunity had been delivered right in front of them, how could they not be worried? Furthermore, this had happened after he had obtained the flying ship. Under such circumstances, only an idiot would believe the other party's so-called good intentions and give him an opportunity. The Holy Lord of the Dark Night stood beside Xiaoyang and whispered, "Don't be fooled. Elder Tian is really generous. He actually gave an opportunity to an outsider like me," Xiaoyang said with a cold smile. How could Xiaoyang not know about this? However, the other party was not a fool. How could he be fooled by just a few words? Could it be that they felt that they were already so arrogant that they were invincible? Tian Bunu stroked his beard and laughed heartily. Although the Thousand Thunder Realm likes to fight, we also respect the strong. Of course, we're kind and hospitable to the strong. As for those useless people, they don't have the right to accept our invitation. As he said that, Tian Bunu glanced at Chen Mingho and the bald man from the corner of his eye. His mocking expression made the bald man and the bald man fly into a rage. They clenched their fists and were ready to fight. "Old man, who are you talking about?" Chen Mingho was half a step away from King Wu rank 8, so he felt that he might be able to defeat Tian Bunu. Tian Bunu said contemptuously, "You know who I'm talking about." These words completely enraged Chen Mingho. He shouted angrily, and the aura on his body surged. He was ready to fight Tian Bunu. With Xiaoyang's confidence, Chen Mingho was not afraid. Although he knew that there were many experts in the Thousand Thunder Realm, he had something to rely on. "Fellow Taoist, I invited you to take advantage of the opportunity in a friendly manner, but your dog barked wildly in front of me. Is this how you treat your guest?" Tian Bunu's eyes narrowed into slits. The Baldi also knew how powerful the Thousand Thunder Realm was, so he immediately pulled Chen Mingho back. If a battle really broke out, then it would be difficult for them to move forward. Holy Lord of Dark Night said in a low voice, "Xiaoyang, let's leave this place." From Holy Lord Dark Night's point of view, although the other party looked kind, it was probably just a facade. In this place, even if they couldn't win, they still had a chance to escape. If he went to their territory, it would be hard for him to escape. Who could guarantee that they didn't set up an inescapable net in the Thousand Thunder Realm? Fortuitous encounters can only be encountered and not sought after. However, ordinary fortuitous encounters are of no use to me. Xiaoyang said indifferently. Now, Xiaoyang also needed to find opportunities to make himself stronger. If the other party gave him enough bait, he wouldn't mind taking the bait. As soon as he said this, Holy Lord of Dark Night and the others were stunned. Such a move was a little too unwise. Moreover, they didn't know much about the Thousand Thunder Realm. If they rashly went there, they would probably bring a lot of trouble to themselves. They might not even be able to return. Even the Baldi's expression changed. He felt that Xiaoyang was a little careless this time. At this moment, the Baldi immediately pulled Chen Mingho back to the flying ship and said in a low voice, "Boss, the Thousand Thunder Realm already has King Wu Stage 8 powerhouses. There are also many strong experts. Be careful." In response to the Baldi's reminder, Xiaoyang smiled indifferently. If it wasn't a great opportunity, I naturally wouldn't have the face to come and invite Taoist Xiaoyang. Of course, if you think this is a trap and think that the Thousand Thunder Realm is despicable and cunning, you can leave. However, there won't be such a shop after this village. The silent Thunder Pearl will be missed by you. Tian Bunu was still smiling as if his smile would never disappear. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang frowned slightly and turned to look at the Baldy. He really didn't know what this silent thunder bead was, and he wasn't very clear about its effects. Boss, the silent thunder pearl is a divine item unique to the Thousand Thunder Realm. Rumor has it that the silent thunder pearl is formed after being struck by thousands of lightning bolts. It contains thousands of lightning bolts and can be used to comprehend or temper the body. By the way, most of the cultivators in the Thousand Thunder Realm use lightning to temper their bodies. Therefore, their physical bodies are very strong, and their strength is much stronger than those in the same realm. However, there are very few top cultivators. After all, using lightning to temper the body is very risky. The Baldy also revealed all the information he knew. Xiao Yang nodded with a smile when he heard this. If what Tian Bianu said was true, it would be like someone giving him a pillow when he was sleeping. Although Xiao Yang's realm had been upgraded to the 7th level Kingwu, his physical body was still a little weak. If he went to experience it, there might be a pleasant surprise. This bait was indeed very tempting to Xiao Yang. "Xiao Yang, be careful," Sacred Lord of the Dark Night whispered. The Baldy also echoed, "Boss, I'm afraid this is a trap. It's better to be careful. If I encounter a cultivator in the same realm as the Thousand Thunder Realm, I'm afraid I won't be able to defeat him." Their words made Xiao Yang frown slightly. It was fine if he was alone, but it was hard to say if the Anya clan was involved. "Since Taoist Xiao Yang is not brave enough, I won't force you. I'll take my leave now." After Tian Bianu finished speaking, he cupped his hand slightly and was about to turn and leave. The people who followed Tian Bianu also looked like they were about to leave. Since Senior Tian has given me an opportunity, it would be impolite to refuse. Senior, please lead the way. This junior cannot decline such good intentions. Xiao Yang said with a chuckle. Xiao Yang was looking for opportunities all over the world. Now that the Thousand Thunder Realm had given him one, he naturally had to go and take a look. Even if it was a pit, it had to be big enough to bury him. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the Anya clan, the bald man, and the others all changed. What he wanted to do was a little reckless. Or could it be that he was bold because of his skills, but this decision was really rash? Heroes indeed come from the young. I admire your courage. Please follow me. Tian Bianu was still smiling as he spoke. However, he did not stop walking and moved forward quickly. Chapter 1446. Boss, isn't this a little too bold? I'm afraid the Thousand Thunder Realm is a tiger's den, Baldy said hesitantly. To be honest, Baldy didn't have any confidence in this matter. One had to be careful in the Jianghu. If the other party had set up an inescapable trap in his territory, he would really be walking right into the trap. Holy Lord Dark Knight was also very worried. The people on the airship were all elites of his clan. If they were all wiped out here, his Dark Knight clan would really be finished. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Don't worry, the airship is very safe. When the time comes, even if I can't defeat them, I can still escape, Xiao Yang said casually. In Xiao Yang's opinion, this was still worth the trip. With the airship and Sky Qin Mountain, what was there to be afraid of? Even unrivaled God could not catch up with him back then, so he was still confident about this. Holy Lord Dark Knight and Baldy did not say anything when they saw this. Although they were still very worried, they could only choose to believe in Xiao Yang now. They also hoped that the Thousand Thunder Realm invited them sincerely and not set a trap for them. Xiao Yang was also thinking about this matter. He also knew that many things were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. Although he had some backup, it was better to be safe than sorry. After a few hours, he gradually saw a piece of land. At this moment, Tian Bianu also stopped. Fellow Xiao Yang, the Thousand Thunder Realm only invited you this time. As for the rest of the trash, it's inconvenient for them to enter the Thousand Thunder Realm. Please forgive me. Tian Bianu was still smiling. He was very polite when he said these rude words. Xiao Yang's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Since the other party had called his friend trash, it was hard for him not to feel a little angry. However, on second thought, it was not a big deal for him to take the risk alone. If these friends were also involved, it would be inevitable that he would not be able to take care of them. Senior, don't worry. I'll stop the airship here. This must be the Thousand Thunder Realms territory. You're a good host, so you'll take good care of my friends and not let them be disturbed, right? Xiaoyang was also smiling. Of course. Tianbunu answered without hesitation. He looked at the people on the flying ship with a meaningful look in his eyes. Soon after, Xiaoyang took out 2 bottles of pills and passed them to Qin Mingho and the Baldy. He said, "These are all explosion pills. If they make a move when the time comes, I'll rely on you too." The Baldy and Qin Mingho received the pills with gratitude in their hearts. This was because Xiaoyang's actions could be said to be very important to him, and they were not on guard against him. "Boss, don't worry. We'll definitely defend it to the death," Baldy said immediately. Xiaoyang smiled indifferently and left the airship. Of course, Xiaoyang wasn't completely defenseless against Baldy and Qin Mingho. The airship stopping here was just a cover. Now that he could control the airship, no matter where he was, he only needed to use his mind to quickly bring him to his side. He didn't say this out loud because he wanted to test the 2 newcomers. After seeing Xiaoyang leave, Sacred Lord of the Dark Night also looked at Qin Mingho and the Baldy warily. "Fellow Taoist, you're a straightforward person. You don't beat around the bush. I like it." Tianbunu chuckled as he led the way. Xiaoyang also laughed and said, "How can I be sloppy when an opportunity is right in front of me? However, I can't help but be suspicious of your good intentions." The other people had different expressions on their faces. Tianbunu, on the other hand, was still as calm as ever. "Fellow cultivator, you should know that treasures have always belonged to the virtuous since ancient times. Also, your cultivation is extraordinary. When the time comes, please take care of our juniors." Tianbunu seemed to be talking about domestic matters. Xiaoyang nodded with a smile and replied, "Of course." As for the bait, Xiaoyang was very much looking forward to it. "Fellow cultivator, you don't have to worry. This time, the Thousand Thunder Realm has also invited many powerful people from other places. This is to make friends. After all, the juniors will all go out and travel. When the time comes, more friends will be able to take care of them." Tianbunu also said earnestly. Xiaoyang felt that these words were indeed very reassuring. Once many people received gifts, they would naturally be grateful. When the time came, if they met the other party's juniors, they would naturally help them. This kind of thinking was indeed very good, but he didn't know if it was sincere or not. Soon, Xiaoyang gradually saw the appearance of this continent. However, the first thing that caught his eye was the many dark clouds. These are the thunder clouds, unique to our Thousand Thunder Realm. They are everywhere. If there isn't thunder once a day, it is considered a rare thing in our Thousand Thunder Realm. Tianbunu introduced. These words caused Xiaoyang to be slightly startled. If that was the case, this Thousand Lightning Realm was indeed very unique. "Fellow cultivator, be careful. It is inevitable that you will be struck by lightning when passing through the thunderclouds. Don't panic. If your body is not strong enough, it is best to use your strength to protect yourself." Tianbunu kindly reminded. The moment these words came out, Xiaoyang felt a trace of excitement in his heart. This Thousand Thunder Realm was indeed a good place to cultivate one's body. Using lightning to refine one's body, the significance of that was naturally extraordinary. After entering the thundercloud, Xiaoyang also felt the power of the lightning. It was like a slithering snake as it attacked him. Its speed was very fast, but in Xiaoyang's opinion it was really too slow. As long as he increased his speed slightly, he would be able to dodge it. The thunderclouds were also very thick. Even with Xiaoyang's speed, it took him a full 10 minutes. It could also be said that the thunderclouds could be considered a layer of protection of the Thousand Thunder Realm. 2 of them were a little unlucky. They were struck by thunder and lightning. Now their hair was disheveled and there was even smoke coming out of their bodies. Soon, Xiaoyang also caught a glimpse of the continent's appearance. It was very delicate and beautiful, but some places were bare, which was a bit of a bummer. Another half an incense, sticks time passed, and they also stepped on the land of the Thousand Thunder Realm. Looking up, he saw a huge plaque with the words Thousand Thunder Palace. Presumably, the Thousand Thunder Palace was named after the Thousand Thunder Realm. It was probably the most powerful sect in the Thousand Thunder Realm. Xiaoyang slightly released his divine consciousness and felt that there was a violent spiritual power of thunder and lightning elements in the air. It was very active. Even the aura of destruction contained in the aura of thunder and lightning made people feel a little anxious. Fellow cultivator, welcome to the Thousand Thunder Palace. We will go and see the palace master now. Tian Bunu made an inviting gesture. Xiaoyang also said a few polite words to Tian Bunu before walking inside. Chapter 1447. Under Tian Bunu's lead, Xiaoyang followed him into the depths of the Thousand Thunder Palace. Along the way, he carefully observed the disciples who passed by. He could not find any clues from their expressions. Everything was very normal. However, because of Tian Bunu's lead, he attracted a lot of strange gazes. This was understandable. Tian Bunu's cultivation was very high. His position in the Thousand Thunder Palace must be very high. Many disciples were very curious about the person he had invited. They wondered what kind of almighty expert he was, and why Tian Bunu had to receive him personally. Along the way, Xiaoyang also saw many people who came to the Thousand Thunder Palace from other places. However, they were all led by the elders of the Thousand Thunder Palace. It was very easy to distinguish the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm from those of other places. The reason was very simple. The people of the Thousand Thunder Realm used thunder and lightning to temper their bodies. Their bodies were very different from ordinary people's. They were very strong, and their eyes revealed a valiant look. It was obvious that the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm were very warlike. Perhaps it could be said that the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm were very warlike. Under such conditions, and under the influence of the thunder element, how could they not be warlike? Occasionally, some elders would greet Tian Bunu, but he would just smile and ignore them. From the elders' extremely respectful gazes, it could be inferred that Tian Bunu's position was very high. It could even be said that he was a transcendent existence. Along the way, everything seemed to be not much different from what Tian Bunu had said. There were many young talents who came from other places to participate in this opportunity. Even so, Xiaoyang was not completely at ease. After all, the current calmness was a little surprising. Xiaoyang could even imagine that the other party would not be so generous. Perhaps they were just there to serve as a foil. It was almost impossible for them to obtain anything good. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that they were going to pave the way. No matter which possibility it was dangerous. Since he was here, Xiaoyang naturally would not leave so easily. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. If he did not see what this opportunity was, how could he be at ease? Of course, if the other party really wanted to use him as a tool, he did not mind taking all the treasures. Not long after, Xiaoyang arrived at the main hall of the Thousand Thunder Palace. There were quite a few people gathered here. After Tian Bunu appeared in the main hall, countless people's gazes landed on Xiaoyang. It could be said that during this period of time, there were many rumors about Xiaoyang. His situation was even spread by Shen Wushuang from the God Realm. To be able to attract the attention of Shen Wushuang from the Divine Realm, one could tell how outstanding this person was. In fact, they had even sent their supreme elder, Tian Bunu, to invite him over. At this time, a very fierce and dignified middle-aged man walked over. He sized up Xiaoyang and said with a smile, "Welcome, fellow Taoist Xiaoyang, to the Thousand Thunder Palace." The moment these words were spoken, the other people in the hall immediately raised their eyebrows. Some people's gazes even became particularly heated. The reason for this was very simple. Xiao Yang had a flying ship in his hands that was an invitation to the God realm, and at the same time it was an opportunity to soar to the top. If this was not the Thousand Thunder Palace, some people might not be able to hold themselves back and would be prepared to snatch it. Xiao Yang, this is our palace master, Tian Bianu introduced with a smile. Xiao Yang immediately cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your kindness, palace master." Seeing that the other party's expression was not strange at all, and more like he was sizing him up, Xiao Yang was a little surprised. When he came, he thought that there might be an inescapable trap here. However, now it seemed that things were getting more and more interesting. As expected, heroes come from the young. Let me introduce everyone. This is the Xiao Yang that Shen Wushuang from the God realm mentioned. His ability is on par with King Wu's rank 7, but he caught Shen Wushuang's attention. I'm sure there's something special about him. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master introduced loudly. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master's voice was as loud as a bell to begin with. With this special introduction, it could be said that almost the entire Thousand Thunder Palace could hear it. This sentence was like a reminder, like a sudden clap of thunder. More people's gazes fell on Xiao Yang. For a moment, those who did not know what was going on asked the Thousand Thunder Palace disciples. Only then did they know the reason. Of course, from the very beginning, the Thousand Thunder Palace had made the decision and designated Xiao Yang as their mysterious VIP. With this kind of publicity, Xiao Yang's reputation could be said to be like thunder in the Thousand Thunder Palace. Sensing the unfriendly aura coming from all directions, Xiao Yang smiled helplessly and bitterly. Since then, he had not done anything, but he had already offended many people. A man's wealth was his own ruin. Xiao Yang's expression did not change. He merely smiled and nodded. Fellow Taoist Xiao Yang, the Wild Thunder Secret Realm will open the day after tomorrow. If you're tired, you can rest and conserve your energy. If you have enough energy, you can also make friends here. As you all know, the Thousand Thunder Palace is very willing to make friends. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master did not have the dignity of a superior at all. He seemed similar to Tian Bianu. Looking at those people's gazes, Xiao Yang said, I've encountered many powerful enemies along the way. I'd like to rest for a while. If he stayed in the main palace, he might not be able to make any friends. In fact, it might even make people feel more uncomfortable. Of course, looking at those who were gnashing their teeth but could not kill him, he could not help but feel secretly delighted. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Xiao Yang left the main palace under the guidance of the Thousand Thunder Palace disciples. The main palace could be said to be a place of trouble now. Although Xiao Yang was able to establish himself there without fear of anything, there was no need for that. However, the Wild Thunder secret realm the day after tomorrow had moved him. At this time, it was naturally the best choice to conserve his energy. Of course, if others knew less about his situation, he would naturally be safer. If a person was thoroughly understood by others, it was likely that many unforeseen events would unavoidably occur in the future, and plans would be formulated to deal with him. The people of the Thousand Thunder Palace seemed to be very hospitable. The disciple who had led Xiao Yang to rest also expressed his friendliness. He also excitedly asked some questions about Xiao Yang. It made one feel as if this listener was even more excited than the person involved. This was not surprising. The Thousand Thunder Realm was more fanatical about strength being respected. On the contrary, their status was somewhat insignificant. For example, if the children of some elder of the Thousand Thunder Palace were useless, they would be directly abandoned to a remote place. They would not be able to return at all if they did not reach a certain level. Chapter 1448. The news of Xiao Yang's arrival at the Thousand Thunder Palace also became explosive news with the announcement of the Thousand Thunder Palace Master. It could be said that almost everyone was involved in the discussion. Although some people didn't know who Xiao Yang was, they could imagine that the person praised by the Palace Master must be a very extraordinary person. More, and more news gradually began to spread. For a time, the topic of Xiaoyang overshadowed the popularity of the opening of the Thousand Thunder Secret Realm. After all, the minimum requirement for the opening of the Thousand Thunder Secret Realm was to be at least level 5 King Wu. People below this level were not able to participate. Therefore, most disciples felt that this distinguished guest from afar, Xiaoyang, made people more and more curious. Such a genius had not appeared in the Thousand Thunder Palace for hundreds of years. Of course, this kind of publicity also made many young talents from other places jealous. At the same time, some people began to form an alliance to deal with Xiaoyang after entering the secret realm. If the time was right, it seemed to be a very good thing if they could snatch the airship in his hands. It could also be said that many people were already eager to take action when they knew that Xiaoyang had an airship in his hands. Although Xiaoyang's small room seemed very quiet, there were already undercurrents surging outside. In the face of great temptation, who could maintain their original demeanor? In his spare time, Xiaoyang would also pay close attention to the situation on the airship. If Chun Mingho and the Baldi suddenly betrayed him, the consequences would be immeasurable for the Anya clan. Moreover, he also had to be on guard against the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm secretly causing trouble. However, everything was very calm. There was not the slightest sign of trouble. Chun Mingho and the Baldi were also very harmonious. They even drank with Fei Yi and the others. Not long after, an elder of the Thousand Thunder Palace also came to tell Xiaoyang some things about the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. There were many opportunities in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. It all depended on luck. Of course, the risk inside was also very high because the lightning in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm was more powerful and frequent than the lightning in the Thousand Thunder Secret Realm. Therefore, the strength of the ominous beasts that could survive inside was very powerful. There were even ferocious beasts that could fight against an 8th Order Martial King. This sounded extremely terrifying. 2 days passed quickly. Early in the morning, everyone was gathered in the main hall. After the palace master gave an impassioned speech, he sent people to distribute the pills. This medicinal pill is the lightning repelling pill that our Thousand Thunder Palace refined using a special method. It can reduce the damage from the lightning tribulation. Even if you are attacked, it can reduce a lot of the damage. Of course, this lightning-repelling pill was also necessary to enter the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, and its medicinal efficacy only lasted for 7 days. After 7 days, you will be rejected by the Mystic Realm, the Hall Master explained. For a time, many cultivators also opened their mouths to express their thanks. The Thousand Thunder Realm had always been warm and hospitable, and now it seemed that this was indeed the case. Xiaoyang looked at the lightning-repelling pill and could clearly feel the power of lightning circulating in it. However, the power inside was very gentle, without the slightest sense of violence. Of course, you can use the lightning-repelling pill to temper your body after entering the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. However, there are still some things you need to pay attention to. This is just an auxiliary pill. If you try to be brave, I'm afraid the gains will not make up for the losses. Please think more about it. After the master of the Thousand Thunder Palace finished speaking, cheers immediately rose and fell. This was because many cultivators had gone to learn about the effects of the thunder-repelling pill during these days. They were well aware of how powerful the effects of the thunder-repelling pill were. It could also be said that there were many experts in the Thousand Thunder Realm because of the lightning-repelling pill. If it weren't for the lightning-repelling pill, many cultivators would have died suddenly after using lightning to temper their bodies. Xiaoyang thought for a moment and swallowed the lightning-repelling pill. Immediately after the lightning-repelling pill entered his body, it exploded like thunder on the ground. Immediately, a numb feeling spread throughout his body. However, this thunder didn't give people a kind of injury or pain. Instead, it made people feel a little lightheaded. The lightning element also swam in every cell of the body and stimulated it. I see. The effect of the lightning-repelling pill is to let the human body gently adapt to the power of lightning. Xiao Yang pondered in his heart. He also felt that this lightning-repelling pill seemed to be very good. Using this method to temper the body could indeed benefit many people. In this way, Xiao Yang was also a little tempted. He could also give it a try. However, this lightning-repelling pill was a secret of the Thousand Thunder Realm. It was not an easy task to figure out the formula. As for what the Thousand Thunder Palace Master was saying, Xiao Yang was not interested in listening. Instead, he began to feel the medicinal efficacy of the lightning-repelling pill. He also wanted to know and figure out the knack. If he could gain something, it would naturally be very good. However, there wasn't a lot of medicinal power in it. Instead, there was more of the lightning element. This gave Xiao Yang a headache, because he felt that this kind of lightning was probably unique to the Thousand Thunder Realm. As for what medicinal herbs the medicinal efficacy came from, Xiao Yang also knew in his heart. Only 2 medicinal herbs were not very clear. He was afraid that this was also unique to the Thousand Thunder Realm. This could not be guessed rashly. After all, alchemy could not be sloppy. Sometimes, if there was a slight mistake, the refined pill would be poisonous. It seemed that this was nothing. Poisonous pills were completely tonic for Xiao Yang, so he didn't have to worry about this problem at all. After a long time, the Thousand Thunder Palace Master finally finished his speech and led everyone to the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. On the way, Tian Bianu stopped Xiao Yang and said, "Fellow cultivator, the Wild Thunder Secret Realm seems to be much more violent this time. If the disciples of the Thousand Thunder Palace are in trouble, I hope you can lend a hand." After saying that, Tian Bianu took out a bottle of medicinal pills and handed it to him. It seemed that he was prepared to bribe him. Xiao Yang shook his head and said, "If you're a good friend, I naturally won't treat you badly. As for this thing, I don't have the face to accept it." "That's good. Anything can happen in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble you," Tian Bianu said earnestly. Xiao Yang also agreed very generously. After all, the other party was so friendly, so he naturally would not change his attitude. Open. Following several shouts, 9 bolts of lightning suddenly appeared in the sky. They immediately gathered together and continuously bombarded each other. The scene was very terrifying. The power of these 9 bolts of lightning was probably something that even King Wu, who was at the 7th level, would have to avoid and not dare to face them head-on. The lightning suddenly exploded, and at the same time a hole appeared. Chapter 1449. The passageway to the secret realm has been opened. Fellow cultivators, make haste. It will close in 10 minutes. As soon as the master of the Thousand Thunder Palace said this, everyone rushed into the secret realm, like a school of carps crossing the river. After all, if they missed this opportunity, they would probably never have another chance like this again. After all, the Wild Thunder Secret Realm opened once every 100 years. It was hard to say whether they would be invited and qualified again after 100 years. After watching all these cultivators enter the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, the master of the Thousand Thunder Palace revealed a smile on his face. It was a very strange sight. "Supreme Elder, how many cultivators do you think our Thousand Thunder Palace will have this time?" The master of the Thousand Thunder Palace asked with a smile. Tian Bianu's originally pleasant expression turned serious at this moment. He said, "It doesn't matter how many there are. As long as he can walk out, it's enough." The expressions of the others also changed because of this. Soon after, they also revealed a smile. Yes, the Wild Thunder Secret Realm was focused on him this time. In order to hone his skills, many people were invited this time. There were many treasures and opportunities in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, but under such circumstances, it would be very chaotic. Naturally, killing was unavoidable. Indeed, the Thousand Thunder Secret Realm is now closed. When do we make our move? As he said this, a sharp light flashed in the master of the Thousand Thunder Palace's eyes. As soon as the sentence was said, many people became excited. Tian Bianu smiled indifferently and said, "There's no hurry. It's not difficult for King Wu to leave the Wild Thunder Secret Realm as a rank 7 cultivator. Therefore, we'll wait for a few more days. When he's exhausted, even if he comes out, he'll be like a turtle in a jar." Immediately, a mocking smile appeared on the corners of many people's mouths. Their eyes were filled with shrewdness and foresight. When Xiaoyang passed through the passageway, he was struck by lightning. Smoke was coming out of his body. The power of the lightning was no small matter. Xiaoyang suffered some injuries. Fortunately, he was protected by the thunder-repelling pill, so it was not very serious. On the contrary, he began to use the power of the lightning to temper his body. This feeling was very good. It could be said that everyone who entered the Wild Thunder Secret Realm was struck by lightning. This was also something one had to endure in order to enter the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. There were even 2 unlucky 5th Stage King Wu cultivators who were struck by the lightning. Although they had the protection of the lightning-repelling pill, they were still seriously injured and on the verge of death. In such a harsh environment, it was very difficult for them to survive in their current state, let alone look for opportunities. Suddenly, Xiaoyang furrowed his brows because he felt a medicinal effect invading his heart and spirit sea. This change caused Xiaoyang's expression to change involuntarily. He could feel that this medicinal effect was somewhat extraordinary. If it wasn't for his extraordinary sensitivity towards medicine, he wouldn't have been able to detect it. "Ha! What a 1,000 Thunder Palace! Do you really think you're good people? However, I do play this game." Xiaoyang laughed strangely. After the medicinal efficacy flowed into Xiaoyang's spirit sea, he directly operated his cultivation method to absorb it, turning it into a part of his strength. At this moment, 2 other people appeared in front of Xiaoyang. They seemed to be very aggressive as well. "You're Xiaoyang." A man in white, holding a folding fan, looked at him and asked. Xiaoyang yawned, not looking at them directly, and said, "You, a 6th Stage King Wu cultivator, dare to show off in front of me? You want to defeat me and snatch my airship? You'd better recover your cultivation first." The white-robed man's expression immediately became uncomfortable, as if he had eaten a fly. When he passed through the barrier before, he had indeed been seriously injured. Now, looking at Xiaoyang's calm appearance, he really felt a little weak in his heart. Everyone should make good use of the time to recover. It's not easy to enter the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. Don't hurt the harmony. Opportunities are the most important. At this time, a 1,000 Thunder Palace disciple also walked out, acting as a peacemaker. "For the sake of the 1,000 Thunder Palace, I won't bicker with you." The white-robed man also snorted coldly. Hearing this, Xiaoyang couldn't help but feel a little helpless. Presumably, this was the so-called stubbornness of a dead duck. However, Xiaoyang also didn't want to bicker with such a clown. He directly soared into the sky, flying into the distance. After all, the time in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm was limited, so he had to quickly find his own opportunities. He could find his own opportunities before the medicinal efficacy of the lightning-repelling pill dissipated. Seeing Xiaoyang leave first, some other people who weren't seriously injured also began to soar into the sky, afraid that they would fall behind and miss out on some good opportunities. Of course, the fastest were still the 1,000 Thunder Palace disciples. Of course, they also had an absolute advantage in this aspect. They had been baptized by the power of lightning since they were young, and had long been accustomed to it. In addition, with the lightning-repelling pill, the damage caused by the lightning to them was many times less than that of others. Many people scattered in all directions, but some people with ulterior motives rushed in Xiaoyang's direction. There were also many people chasing after Xiaoyang. They had long discussed that after entering the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, they would join hands to deal with him. If they could successfully seize the flying ship, then they would enter the divine realm together. When he felt that there were people chasing after him, the corners of Xiaoyang's mouth revealed a trace of a sneer. These people were really a little whimsical. Did they think that they would be able to find trouble with him like this? If it was in the past, Xiaoyang would really have the heart to play with these people. However, now that time was pressing, he could only give up on this idea and increase his speed, shaking off those people behind him. This was because Xiaoyang could sense from their auras that there were a few cultivators of the same level as him. When the time came, it would definitely be very troublesome to deal with them. Therefore, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Hiding from them now was naturally not a big deal. If they still dared to act like this after leaving the Wild Thunder secret realm, then don't blame him for being impolite. In a short while, Xiaoyang had left that group of people far behind, and they could no longer sense each other's auras. At this moment, Xiaoyang also began to think about the information that the 1,000 Thunder Palaces Tianbinu had told him. The Wild Thunder secret realm was different from other paradises. Because this place had been struck by lightning for a long time, it could be said to be completely barren, with not even a blade of grass growing. It could be said to be a scene of devastation. Chapter 1450. Along the way, he had also encountered many lightning strikes. Fortunately, his movement technique was relatively agile, so he was able to avoid all of them without any mishap and was not hit by any of them. The sky above the Wild Thunder secret realm was covered with dark clouds. Occasionally, a bolt of lightning would strike down, causing the ground to be filled with gravel and craters. Even a small hill would be flattened. This showed how terrifying the power of lightning was. It was hard to imagine what kind of creatures could grow in such a harsh environment like the Wild Thunder secret realm. Even if there were, they would be very rare. Xiaoyang's journey had already covered thousands of miles, but he had only sensed a few creatures. However, each of them was very powerful. At the very least, they were comparable to King Wu's rank 5 strength. This showed how terrifying the ferocious beasts that grew up in this barren land were. After completely shaking off his pursuers, Xiaoyang's pace slowed down a lot. His gaze was completely fixed on the sky. He was looking for a piece of information that the master of the 1,000 Thunder Palace had told them. The Wild Thunder secret realm was covered with dark clouds, but there were very few white clouds. There was a great possibility that the silent Thunder Pearl was hidden in those white clouds. Therefore, as long as he saw white clouds, there was a great chance that he would find the silent Thunder Pearl. At the same time, Xiaoyang was also pondering over another piece of information. Tianbinu had told him not to keep going north because it was very likely that he would encounter a ferocious beast that was comparable to King Wu's rank 8 strength. That beast was extremely powerful. If he encountered it, he must hide far away and not lose his life. The more he said this, the more Xiaoyang felt that Tianbinu was hinting at him. Generally, places where extremely powerful vicious beasts were entrenched were likely to contain heaven and earth treasures. That was why they would guard that place and wait for the right time to devour it to raise their strength to the next level. The ominous beast, whose strength was comparable to that of the rank 8 King Wu, was indeed tyrannical. Xiaoyang did not have the confidence to kill it, but sometimes, when snatching treasures, strength was not the only thing that mattered. Moreover, the intelligence of ferocious beasts had always been limited. If they were cautious, they might still have a chance. Therefore, Xiaoyang continued to head north. He wanted to find out if this news was true or false. He was still looking forward to what he could gain from this. However, after walking for thousands of miles, Xiaoyang didn't even see a single white cloud. This made him a little unhappy. White clouds could be said to be everywhere in other places, but in this Wild Thunder secret realm, they were extraordinarily rare. Could it be that Tianbinu was toying with him on purpose and had given him a false path? When this thought came to mind, Xiaoyang felt even more uncomfortable. However, he felt that this was unreasonable. Tianbinu asked him to take care of the disciples of the 1,000 Thunder Palace. It was very likely that the people of the 1,000 Thunder Palace would also head north to search for the ominous beast. Therefore, this arrangement was made. For a time, many questions made Xiaoyang's originally wavering heart gradually recover its firmness. He would give it a try for the time being. Who knew, he might have a chance to succeed. At the same time, Xiaoyang was also pondering the Thousand Thunder Palace's purpose in inviting outsiders into the Wild Thunder's secret realm. Hospitality was good, but there was no more benefit to support it. Therefore, the meaning of doing this was not that great. After about 12 hours, Xiaoyang finally saw a white cloud. Immediately, Xiaoyang couldn't help but hold his breath. It seemed that the Thousand Thunder Palace Master was telling the truth. There was a white cloud in this dense mass of clouds. This could be said to be very rare. It could also be said to be the only light in this pitch-black world. Filled with excitement, Xiaoyang rushed into the white cloud. Just as he entered, Xiaoyang felt a dangerous and violent aura attacking him. When he took a closer look, it turned out to be a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm that was attacking him directly. The power of lightning emitted by the white clouds was several times stronger than the lightning emitted by the black clouds. Xiaoyang's first reaction was to dodge. However, he didn't dodge and allowed the lightning to strike his body. Boom! Xiaoyang couldn't help but tremble. The lightning contained an extremely powerful destructive power. Xiaoyang was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. After the electric shock, the familiar numbness also made Xiaoyang feel as if every cell in his body was undergoing a baptism. He even felt a sense of comfort and satisfaction. However, this was not the end. Bolt after bolt of lightning bombarded Xiaoyang as if they had gone crazy. After the previous experience, Xiaoyang didn't dodge and allowed the lightning to strike his body. This was a great opportunity to temper his body. How could he miss it? The body he wanted was already tyrannical enough. Although it was painful to be struck by lightning, he could enjoy it and use it as a medium to start cultivating his body. It had to be said that Xiaoyang was really a masochist. He seemed to be getting more and more excited now. Xiaoyang felt that his body was becoming stronger under the tempering of the lightning. This made him feel that it was very possible for his body to break through to the Seventh Order Martial King realm. If it really happened, then he could really become an invincible existence in the same realm. After feeling it for a while, Xiaoyang also continued to move forward in the white clouds, because what he wanted more was the silent thunder bead. If he could have the silent thunder bead to temper his body, then he would be able to temper his body for a long time. How could this not make people excited? Xiaoyang was about to release his divine sense to search, but he was directly struck by lightning. Suddenly, his whole person was stunned and his mind was buzzing. A strong body could enjoy the lightning strike, but the divine sense was very weak. It was very difficult to resist the lightning strike. Xiaoyang also smiled helplessly. It seemed that it was almost impossible to perceive where the silent thunder bead was. He could only rely on his own eyes to find it. No wonder the silent thunder bead was so rare. It must be because of this. White clouds in the Wild Thunder secret realm were already pitifully rare. Even if you found the white clouds, you might not be able to find the silent thunder bead. Chapter 1451. This white cloud seemed very small under the encirclement of many dark clouds, but its interior was very large. It was rumored that the silent thunder bead was only the size of an egg. Although it was not like looking for a needle in a haystack, it was still like looking for a big lake. Fortunately, the heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Xiaoyang saw a white pearl with lightning circling around it, making a sizzling sound. Feeling the violent power emitted from the small bead, Xiaoyang was very sure that it was the silent thunder bead he was looking for. Xiaoyang's heart was also very excited that he had found it after so much effort. Xiaoyang's head was hot, and he rushed over directly. He opened his hand, and suddenly countless spiritual power rushed out like a river, suppressing the thunder and lightning power emitted from the silent thunder bead. However, his spiritual power began to dissipate quickly under the counterattack of the thunder and lightning power. This made Xiaoyang raise his eyebrows. At the same time, he also released a purer power, which suppressed the thunder and lightning power. At the same time, The silent thunder bead seemed to feel the threat. At this moment, the white cloud quickly shrank turned into thunder and lightning, and bombarded Xiaoyang with all its strength. Such an unforeseen event caused Xiaoyang's heart to be greatly shocked. However, this also confirmed his thoughts. The silent thunder bead was not an ordinary item. It would be strange if he could obtain it so easily. Come on. The corner of Xiaoyang's mouth raised slightly. He did not prepare to resist the attack of these thunder and lightning. Instead, he wholeheartedly suppressed the silent thunder bead. Boom! With a loud sound, the white cloud turned into thunder and lightning and bombarded Xiaoyang's body. At the same time, he also held the silent thunder bead in his hand and began to seal it. This silent thunder bead was like a bomb. Xiaoyang did not dare to casually carry it on his body. At the same time, Xiaoyang also snorted, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Under the powerful thunder and lightning attack, even if his physical body was strong, it was difficult to resist, and he was seriously injured. Seeing that the white cloud had completely dissipated and the dark clouds quickly gathered, Xiaoyang immediately landed on the ground and carefully observed and checked the silent thunder bead in his hand. It had to be said that this was really a good thing. If it was used well, then it would be very helpful to the body. Haha, I didn't expect that I, Yi Qing, would encounter the silent thunder bead so soon. At this time, a very arrogant and proud laughter also entered Xiaoyang's ears. He looked up and saw a man in a white robe embroidered with lightning. Thousand Thunder Palace's disciple. Many thanks for being able to get the silent thunder bead for me. Your mission has been completed. Please return the silent thunder bead to its rightful owner, Yi Qing said with a slight smile. These words made Xiaoyang frown slightly, and his voice became much lower. What if I say no? He had just obtained the silent thunder bead, and this guy came out to rob him. His luck was really a bit too bad. However, it seemed that the Thousand Thunder Palaces people were not so friendly. When they encountered the silent thunder bead, they showed their true colors. This is not up to you. If you want to subdue the silent thunder bead, you will definitely suffer the white cloud lightning tribulation. Even the 7th rank king, Wu, would be seriously injured and on the verge of death. Although you are still standing now, your life is already hanging by a thread. Can you still fight with me like this? The current you is just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, Yi Qing said disdainfully. In Yi Qing's view, this brat whose internal organs were already cooked by the white cloud lightning tribulation did not have the slightest strength to resist. Everything was as they had expected. Xiaoyang took a deep breath. He also straightened out his train of thought. At this time, he had thought through many problems clearly. So that's how it is. Your Thousand Thunder Palace told us to enter the Wild Thunder Secret Realm in order to make us scapegoats to obtain the Silent Thunder Bead, right? King Wu going to obtain the Silent Thunder Bead with his 6th rank strength is practically a dead end, and you guys can then sit back and reap the benefits without suffering any damage. This is really a good idea, Xiaoyang said somewhat helplessly with a smile. The Thousand Thunder Palaces people's thinking was really a bit sinister. However, this was a normal situation. They didn't even have enough of these good things for themselves. So how could they let outsiders take them away for no reason? Brat, you can be considered smart to be able to think of this now. Since you are a smart person, you know what to do. Yi Qing proudly stretched out his hand, preparing to accept his spoils of war. Now, Yi Qing had already thought it through. After obtaining the Silent Thunder Bead, he would make the other party beg him, and then let him die without any dignity. Since he knew the secret, then he definitely couldn't go out alive and let the Thousand Thunder Realm's reputation be ruined. Ordinary cultivators are only seriously injured or on the verge of death. However, although I am injured, dealing with you is not a difficult matter. As Xiaoyang said this, he also put the Silent Thunder Bead into his bosom. Arrogant. Yi Qing shouted angrily and directly rushed toward Xiaoyang. Even though he, Yi Qing, was a member of the Thousand Thunder Palace, had been baptized by thunder and lightning since young, and had even stepped into King Wu's 7th rank 2 years ago. Even if he was blessed by the heavens, it was still very difficult for him to withstand the white cloud, thunder, tribulation. This outsider actually dared to speak such arrogant words. Seeing Yi Qing rush towards him in anger, Xiaoyang also directly used the barbarian god's 7 steps to dodge. Every time Xiaoyang landed, the power would become a bit heavier, and every time he landed, the earth would shake and the mountains would shake. Yi Qing arrived very quickly, and Xiaoyang directly punched out. Boom! The 2 fists collided, and the ground under Xiaoyang's feet immediately collapsed and shattered inch by inch. However, Yi Qing didn't have it easy either. He was directly shaken and sent flying backwards. In an instant, Yi Qing's heart was also incomparably shocked. Was this guy a monster? He had suffered the white cloud thunder tribulation, but his strength was still so strong. This was really unbelievable. In the same realm, the cultivators of the Thousand Thunder realm were better at strength than the cultivators of other places. How was this possible? Yi Qing really couldn't figure it out. The other party's realm was not any different from his, and he still had a great advantage. Under such circumstances, he was still not his opponent. After flying backwards for hundreds of feet, Yi Qing also stabilized his figure. He looked at the person whose hair was disheveled and whose clothes had been torn to pieces, and felt that he was somewhat familiar. However, for a moment, he couldn't remember where he had seen him before. This kind of subtle feeling was also very normal. They had entered the wild thunder secret realm together, so they had naturally seen each other in a hurry. Chapter 1452. Terminal Lucidity. It must be like this. This was the only excuse he could find to comfort himself. Apart from such a possibility, how could this outsider still have such profound strength after suffering the white cloud thunder tribulation? Looking at Yi Qing's incredulous look, Xiaoyang also laughed disdainfully. Before making a move, he didn't even know how strong his opponent was. Yet he dared to block the road and rob. But this couldn't be blamed on Yi Qing. Their Thousand Thunder realm was originally known for their valiant fighting strength. Compared to the cultivators in other places, they were a bit stronger. It was just that he encountered the best in other places. And Xiaoyang was even more of a monster. Hee, I'd like to see how long you can hold on. Yi Qing laughed coldly, and suddenly his entire body released a strong killing intent. Xiaoyang also stopped talking. He also took the last step of the 7 steps of barbaric steps and instantly appeared in front of Yi Qing. Suddenly, the space around them was almost shattered. The powerful impact made Yi Qing's mind tremble. How was this possible? Just how powerful was this guy? However, Yi Qing's mind had already accepted it, since the other party wanted to kill him and steal his treasures. Then Xiaoyang naturally had no need to show mercy. He directly punched out. This punch carried his anger and directly penetrated Yi Qing's body. Yi Qing's heart was directly bombarded into pieces. Yi Qing looked at the other party in disbelief. What was going on? His physical body was strong and tenacious, so why was it so weak in front of him? Feeling his strength and vitality rapidly flowing away like a floodgate, he had already lost the chance to continue thinking. Such a result was really hard for him to understand. After Xiaoyang killed Yi Qing, he directly plundered all the things on his body and immediately left. Now, Xiaoyang also understood in his heart that the current wild Thunder secret realm had probably become a hunting ground for the cultivators of the Thousand Thunder realm. As expected, how could there be so many good intentions? There were only entanglements of benefits. As for the Thousand Thunder Palace, it was probably because they wanted to reduce the casualties of their own disciples that they released a divine object like the Silent Thunder Pearl, letting foreign cultivators pave the way for their disciples. Such intentions could be said to be extremely sinister. Immediately, Xiaoyang thought of the airship hovering above the Thousand Thunder realm. He immediately condensed his divine sense and found that everything was normal. He was not attacked. Only then did he secretly heave a sigh of relief. If they were to attack the airship, Xiaoyang would be in a bit of a headache. After all, he had also felt the power of this silent thunder pearl. He wanted to get a few more and let the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm know what it meant to go for wool and come home shorn. After confirming the safety of the airship, Xiaoyang continued to head north. The harmony in the past was just a facade. However, the current scheming made Xiaoyang feel that this was the real deal. As for the thunder-repelling pill they had taken before, it probably also contained poison. After entering the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, most of the foreign cultivators would not be able to get out. Even if they were lucky enough to get out, it would be difficult for them to escape from the Thousand Thunder Realm. However, the poison in it was also thought-provoking because the medicinal properties were very unique. This made Xiaoyang unable to analyze it. He could only make a guess, which was that it was probably related to the lightning strikes he had received when entering the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. However, Xiaoyang was not very clear about what was going on. After all, he had not seen it before, so it was difficult to make a judgment. Along the way, Xiaoyang was also looking for white clouds happily. It was just that the silent thunder pearl was very rare, so how could it be so easy to find it? As for covering the area with his divine sense, it was completely impossible to do. Once his divine sense entered the dark clouds, it would be destroyed by the lightning, and he would also be injured. It could be said that the loss outweighed the gain. Xiaoyang did not encounter many white clouds, but the disciples of the Thousand Thunder Palace encountered some. But most of them were King Wu's rank 6 cultivators, so they were not Xiaoyang's opponent at all. Since the other party had exposed his cruelty, Xiaoyang would naturally not be merciful and give him a taste of his own medicine. Although the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm had a lot of things on them, it was only for ordinary cultivators. Xiaoyang was a little disdainful, but no matter how small a mosquito's leg was, it was still meat. It was useless to him, but it did not mean that it was useless to others. At the same time, Xiaoyang also noticed another message. That was, the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm were very sensitive to the aura of the silent thunder pearl. Even if Xiaoyang added a seal on it, it could still be felt by the other party. In this way, this matter became even more perfect. Inviting outsiders to take the silent thunder pearl, and the cultivators of the Thousand Thunder Realm could feel the existence of the silent thunder pearl. After the other cultivators suffered the attack of the white cloud thunder tribulation, their strength was greatly reduced. It could be said that it was very easy to kill and snatch the treasure like this. The rumored warm and hospitable Thousand Thunder Realm was just SOSO. It was not fake. Along the way, Xiaoyang did not procrastinate at all. If someone dared to make a move on him, then he would definitely not show the slightest mercy. It could be said that the Wild Thunder Secret Realm was now a huge battlefield. At the same time, once Xiaoyang encountered the white clouds, he would also rush in to find the silent thunder pearl without hesitation. Although the white cloud thunder tribulation had to be forcibly endured, this was not a big deal for Xiaoyang. He even enjoyed this process, feeling that his body had become tougher and stronger because of the baptism of thunder and lightning. He was secretly happy in his heart. When he got the third silent thunder pearl, his physical body finally broke through the realm and officially entered King Wu's rank 7. The current Xiaoyang could be said to be double King Wu's rank 7. This trip to the Wild Thunder Secret Realm made Xiaoyang very satisfied. The harvest this time was not small. If he made good use of these 3 silent thunder pearls, his cultivation would be very likely to advance further. So under such circumstances, how could he not be happy in his heart? Immediately, Xiaoyang also applied the seal on the silent thunder pearl with all his strength. Xiaoyang, we finally found you. The outside world said that you were amazing, but now it seems that you are just SOSO. Suddenly, a very discordant voice entered Xiaoyang's ears. He looked up and saw 4 King Wu's rank 7 cultivators floating in the air, looking at him with greed. Chapter 1453. When these cultivators saw that Xiao Yang's clothes were tattered and his aura was extremely unstable, they couldn't help but laugh out loud, because they were very clear that this guy had probably gone to take the silent thunder pearl, which was why he ended up like this. And to them, this was undoubtedly good news. Xiao Yang was King Wu level 7, but they had 4 level 7 cultivators. In addition, Xiao Yang's current state was very bad, so they were now 90% sure that they would succeed. Looking at these 4 incomparably greedy people, Xiao Yang also helplessly smiled bitterly. Presumably, these were the cultivators who coveted his flying ship and had joined forces to deal with him. Before this, Xiao Yang really didn't have the confidence to deal with 4 King Wu level 7 cultivators at once. But now that his physical body had reached King Wu level 7, there was still some chance to deal with them. But I have 1 flying ship, but you have 4 people. Even if I hand over the flying ship to you, 3 of you won't be able to get it. Xiao Yang said, pretending to be helpless and sighing. Going head-to-head with 4 King Wu level 7 cultivators was indeed not a wise choice. But if he could divide them, or even make them fight among themselves, that would naturally be the best choice. Xiao Yang, then give up on the idea of driving a wedge between us. Fellow Taoist Sima Yun said that after getting the flying ship, the 4 of us will go to the divine realm to look for opportunities. As for becoming the princess's husband, we still have this bit of self-awareness. That's an impossible thing, so there's no need to think about it. A short man said. The cyan-clothed man in the lead also revealed an extremely contented smile. He was Sima Yin. These words made Xiao Yang stunned for a moment. These 4 people really had some self-awareness. But he couldn't help but admire Sima Yin. He was actually unconditionally trusted by the other 3. It seemed that his methods were not simple. It seemed that it was impossible to divide the 4 of them now. Xiao Yang shrugged helplessly and said, Do the 4 of you really think you can defeat me? After he finished speaking, Xiao Yang's lips curled into a cold smile. Although Xiao Yang didn't want to fight, the 4 of them certainly wouldn't give up easily. Therefore, he might as well solve this problem now. After all, if he solved this problem, then he would have 1 less opponent in the Wild Thunder secret domain. Now, Xiao Yang also realized that under the influence of the 1,000 Thunder Temple Master, he was afraid that all the spearheads in this Wild Thunder secret realm would be directed at him. It could be said that they were all enemies. Arrogant brat, watch how I, Sun Taidan, beat you down with my iron fist. After saying that, a seemingly intrepid little man directly rushed toward Xiao Yang. Although Sun Taidan's aura couldn't be said to be majestic, it gave people a kind of valiant feeling. Presumably, the cultivation method he practiced was also the fierce type, so it was like this. Now, Sun Taidan was also fearless. Although Xiao Yang was rumored to be very powerful, he didn't have the slightest fear. After all, hearsay was false. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, and his condition was also very bad. So under such circumstances, what was there for Sun Taidan to be afraid of? Seeing Sun Taidan rushing over as if he didn't care about his life, Xiao Yang also shouted angrily. Suddenly, his aura completely erupted. This could be said to be a battle of life and death. How could he be careless? The moment Xiao Yang's aura erupted, Sima Yin also felt that something was wrong and immediately frowned. This Xiao Yang was so powerful that now it seemed that it wasn't without reason. This aura was indeed much more tyrannical than the ordinary 7th rank King Wu. However, after suffering the white cloud thunder tribulation, he was just an arrow at the end of its flight. With Sun Taidan's cultivation, it wasn't easy to deal with him, but it could be done. Now, Sima Yin's face also changed a little. Xiao Yang's strength was indeed a little beyond his imagination, but this was still a good thing for him. In this regard, he was also incomparably practical and had his own ideas. Sun Taidan quickly arrived in front of Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang also let out a loud roar and directly punched Sun Taidan's body. Although Sun Taidan's speed was very fast, Xiao Yang's speed was even faster. When Sun Taidan's fist was only an inch away from Xiao Yang's chest, he flew backwards at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, Xiao Yang wouldn't give up this opportunity. He immediately used the barbarian god's 7 steps and rushed toward Sun Taidan at an extremely fast speed. This scene made Sima Yun and the others turn pale with fright. This kind of situation was completely unexpected. They were both 7th rank Kingwu, but the gap between them was actually so big. It was just a face-to-face encounter, but it showed a crushing posture. How was this possible? This kind of result was really hard to accept. Even if Sun Taidan underestimated his opponent and was arrogant, he shouldn't have lost so miserably. However, in a fight between experts, even if you made a little mistake, it would be grasped by the opponent and even magnified infinitely, turning it into an opportunity for victory. When the barbarian god's 7 steps reached the 5th step, Xiao Yang caught up with Sun Taidan, but he didn't launch an attack. However, Sun Taidan's heart was now very frightened. This kind of result was something he didn't expect. It was as if life and death were on the line. He turned his head and saw that Sima Yun and the other 2 were completely stunned. They didn't have the slightest chance to attack, which made Sun Taidan's heart turn cold. In this moment of life and death, Sun Taidan also realized that he was the weakest among the 4. If he died, then there would naturally be one less person to share the benefits with. This was human nature. However, Xiao Yang didn't attack. He was still on the 6th step. Could it be that Xiao Yang was going to let him go? A glimmer of hope appeared in Sun Taidan's heart. As long as he wasn't seriously injured, then the 3 of them naturally wouldn't fall out with him so easily. Moreover, the relationship between the 4 of them was very delicate. There needed to be a balance. If this balance were to be broken, it would be a life and death struggle for both sides. Letting Sun Taidan go? Xiao Yang didn't think about this problem in his heart. He just felt that there was enough time. Barbarian god's 7 steps. With the last step, Xiao Yang directly stepped on Sun Taidan's chest. Suddenly, Sun Taidan's body fell like a meteor, rapidly drooping down. Xiao Yang wanted to use the last step of the 7 steps to explode with the strongest combat power and directly cripple Sun Taidan. Chapter 1454. Immediately, Sun Taidan cried out in pain, and the sound of his bones shattering could be heard. Although the 7 steps of the barbaric steps was an exquisite movement technique, if it was executed at full strength, each step would be more violent than the previous one. Even a cultivator of the 7th step, like King Wu, would find it hard to withstand it. What's more, Xiao Yang's foot had stepped on his fragile heart. At this moment, Sun Taidan felt his vision darken. He felt the pain of his bones shattering and his internal organs shattering. The power of this kick was a little too terrifying. Zhang Quan, Lu Fengqing attacked together. Sima Yun shouted angrily. The current situation was completely beyond his imagination and control. Although Sun Tian's death meant that they would have one less person to share the benefits with, Xiao Yang's performance was too strong. If they couldn't defeat Xiao Yang, then all their plans would be nothing more than wishful thinking. They might even have to pay with their lives. The 2 cultivators already understood how serious the current situation was. If they continued to sit on a mountain and watch the tigers fight, then they might be the ones to die. If they joined forces now, they might have a chance. If they stood on the sidelines and watched, then the result could be imagined. When Xiao Yang sensed the 2 dangerous auras coming towards him, he coldly laughed. Perhaps it would have been a little difficult if they had not stood by and watched. Now that the other party had already crippled one of their men, this battle would naturally be much easier to resolve. In the next moment, Xiao Yang also disappeared. After he left, Sun Taidan spat out a mouthful of black blood. His eyes were wide open, and he looked like he was about to die. No matter how weak Sun Taidan was, he was still a cultivator of the 7th step of King Wu. Naturally, he couldn't be trampled to death by a single kick. However, his bones and internal organs were shattered, and his spiritual energy was scattered in his body, causing his injuries to be very serious. It was almost impossible for him to stand up again. Sun Tai-dan also realized that he would only be qualified to cooperate with them if he was in perfect condition. If they won, it was extremely likely that he would be killed as soon as he had outlived his usefulness. He immediately began to suppress the injuries in his body. When Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing saw Xiaoyang move his body, as though he was preparing to attack, their hearts trembled. From the corner of their eyes, they discovered that Sun Tai-dan no longer had the ability to continue fighting. Naturally, they had high hopes for him. This young man, who was rumored to be highly regarded by unrivaled God, was indeed extraordinary. After witnessing it with their own eyes, they had no choice but to fight with all their might. They could not afford to be careless at all. In an instant, their hands began to form seals, and at the same time they released protective spiritual energy around their bodies. Facing an opponent of this level, he had no choice but to be cautious and fight with all his might. If he was even the slightest bit careless, he might end up like Sun Tai-gan. Previously, he had already suffered a great loss. If he continued to underestimate his opponent, the final outcome would be very terrible. Sima Yin, who was watching the battle from behind, began to form hand seals as well, preparing to launch a sneak attack on Xiaoyang from behind. No matter how powerful Xiaoyang was, he was still only King Wu rank 7. As long as Sima Yin could severely injure him, he would naturally reveal more flaws. There was no reason for them to lose in a 3-on-1 battle. Zhang Quan was the first to launch an attack. Following his shout, he pressed his palm down. Instantly, a huge palm print appeared on top of Xiaoyang's head. The gigantic palm print was burning with a raging fire, and an intense light appeared in the originally dark sky. The scorching heat caused Xiaoyang to be slightly surprised in his heart. Zhang Quan's strength was really not bad. However, if he wanted to defeat him with just this move, was that even possible? At the same time, Lu Fengqing's attack was completed. He pushed with both hands, and immediately, countless wind blades appeared from all directions around Xiaoyang. Every wind blade emitted an extremely sharp aura. Even if one's body was made of steel, it would be like a piece of paper under these wind blades. It could be easily cut through. The wind increased the intensity of the fire, and the fire palm above Xiaoyang's head became even more violent at this moment. Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing revealed a smile at the corners of their mouths. The two of them worked together in this vast sea of stars, and their coordination was perfect. Generally speaking, as long as they used this move at the same time, when facing an opponent of the same level, the opponent might not die, but they would definitely be severely injured. Moreover, there was a possibility that they would directly lose the ability to fight. The wind blades came at an extremely fast speed. Xiaoyang roared and used the 7 steps of the barbaric steps again, preparing to dodge these wind blades. Although the wind blades had not yet reached his body, Xiaoyang could already feel the pain of his skin being torn apart. Therefore, even if it was him, he did not dare to take it head-on. With one step, Xiaoyang immediately dodged the wind blades' attack, and the fire palm also fell. Under the attack of the wind blades, the fire palm quickly dissipated. At the same time, a strange change occurred. Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing laughed again. Xiaoyang, please have a taste of the power of the raging fire wind blades. Lu Fengqing laughed. Although the fire palm disappeared, its power was gathered on the wind blades. At this moment, Zhang Quan also began to form seals again. Following Lu Fengqing's roar, the raging fire wind blades also directly attacked Xiaoyang. The power of the wind blades was now many times stronger than before. Xiaoyang could not help but be startled. It seemed that he had still underestimated his opponent. Now that there was suffering, Xiaoyang could only endure it in his heart. At the same time, he was also very clear that he had to end the battle quickly. If he allowed his opponent to enter the state, then the battle would become even more difficult to deal with. That was not a situation he was willing to see. No matter where Xiaoyang dodged, the raging fire wind blades were like maggots under Lu Fengqing's control. He could not get rid of them even if he wanted to. When Xiaoyang used the seventh step, ripples appeared in the air, and the raging fire wind blades were also shaken to the point that they slowed down. Looking at the incomparably proud Lu Fengqing, Xiaoyang also pointed at him. Barbarian God's finger! With this roar, the power in his body suddenly gathered into a point and directly attacked Lu Fengqing. The barbarian God's finger was originally known for its tyrannical power. Even if it was now a spiritual attack, its power could not be underestimated. Its speed was also very fast. Qi. Lu Fengqing's chest was directly penetrated. Chapter 1455. Lu Fengqing lowered his head in disbelief. He saw a hole appear in his chest. This speed was a bit too fast. He had no time to dodge at all and was hit directly. The spiritual energy in his body began to flow rapidly. This also made Lu Fengqing feel an unprecedented fear in his heart. Could it be that he would end up like Sun Taidan? No, he didn't want to. Although he was hit by this finger, Lu Fengqing's situation was much better than Sun Taidan's. Even though his battle strength would be greatly reduced, at least he wouldn't lose his ability to fight. Dragon imprisoning bell. Sima Yin, who had been silent throughout the battle, finally made his move at this moment. Following his loud roar, a huge ancient bell rapidly appeared and fell down. Boom! It directly suppressed Xiaoyang, who was caught off guard. Sima Yin looked at Xiaoyang with a sneer and said, "Even if you are unparalleled in strength, so what? Now that you are trapped by my dragon imprisoning bell, you will only be slowly refined by us." After saying that, Sima Yin's face became gloomy. At the same time, he released his spiritual energy and prepared to start torturing Xiaoyang. Lu Fengqing also secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Sima Yin stood up in time. Otherwise, the consequences today would be unimaginable. At this moment, Zhang Quan was also preparing to launch a new round of attacks. However, he also gave up. After all, it wasn't a wise choice for him to attack the dragon imprisoning bell now. Xiaoyang looked at Sima Yin indifferently. He didn't expect that he had forgotten about the leader and the strongest person among the four. "I originally wanted to play with you for a while more. Now it seems that there is no need for that." Xiaoyang's expression didn't change at all. Even though he was in danger, he still had a calm appearance. His reaction also made Sima Yin and the other two angry. This guy was about to die, but he still dared to be so arrogant. "You are still so stubborn when you are about to die. Then I will let you taste the power of my dragon imprisoning bell." Sima Yin shouted angrily. Xiaoyang, on the other hand, looked indifferent. He shrugged and said, "If you're not afraid that your treasure will be destroyed, I advise you to keep it. Otherwise, you'll be upset later." Arrogant, Zhang Quan saw that Xiaoyang was already like this, but he still had a look of disapproval. How could he not be angry in his heart? Lu Fengqing, who had retreated to the side, looked a little embarrassed because he felt that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Perhaps Xiaoyang really had nothing to fear. Otherwise, with so many hunters along the way, how could he kill his way out? This was a point worth pondering. Xiaoyang didn't continue to be long-winded with them. He quickly made a few hand seals. Suddenly, a powerful aura emanated from his body. After sensing another powerful aura from the dragon imprisoning bell, Sima Yin's expression immediately changed drastically. This matter was likely not as simple as they had thought. Boom! In an instant, the dragon imprisoning bell shattered into pieces. At the same time, Sima Yin's heart shattered. The dragon imprisoning bell was his most powerful treasure, and he had spent 1,000 years refining it. He never thought that it would shatter and be destroyed just like that. No matter who it would definitely be difficult to accept such a situation. Immediately, Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing's expressions changed drastically. They really didn't expect such an outcome. This Xiaoyang, just how powerful was he? Your dragon imprisoning bell does have some tricks. Now, I will let you have a taste of my heavenly Qin mountain's power. With that, the sneer on Xiaoyang's face became even wider. At the same time, he waved his hand, and the heavenly Qin mountain immediately pressed down on Sima Yun. The oppressive aura of the heavenly Qin mountain caused Sima Yun, who was being targeted, to panic. The powerful pressure made it hard for him to breathe. The fear that came from the bottom of his heart made him feel what the taste of death was like. He became more and more panicked and fearful, as if everything had exceeded his expectations. He never thought that he would end up kicking an iron plate in the end, even though he had made sufficient preparations this time. Lying on the ground, Sun Taidan also felt like he was about to suffocate from the pressure. He also felt that he had been far too laughable before. He had actually naively believed that fame was just a bluff and that he was only a paper tiger. What are you standing there for? Hurry up and do something, or we're all done for. Sima Yun roared out in extreme fear. Tian Qingshan had already locked onto his aura. It was impossible for him to escape now. His only hope was to defeat Xiaoyang. Only then would he have a chance at survival. However, Zhang Quan was in no hurry to act. Instead, he looked at Lu Fengqing as if he was asking something. Afterwards, Lu Fengqing nodded slightly. In the next moment, the two of them quickly rushed off in different directions. When the heavenly Qin mountain directly broke through the dragon imprisoning bell, the two of them already understood that they were no match for Xiaoyang. Now that Xiaoyang was using his full strength to deal with Sima Yun, this was their only chance to escape. Sima Yun instructed us to do all of this. Please forgive us and let us go. Sima Yun could not help but fall into despair when he heard Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing speak like that. That was how the human heart was. Although they had formed an alliance, their lives were now under threat. Under such circumstances, who would be willing to give up their lives? Xiaoyang did not chase after the two of them, because if he did, Sima Yun might be able to escape. As for Zhang Quan and Lu Fengqing, that would depend on their luck. He would not show any mercy the next time they met. Xiaoyang, we've never had any enmity between us. I already know my mistakes, so there's no need for you to kill me, right? Sima Yun also realized this and immediately changed his tone and began to beg for mercy. Xiaoyang sneered and said, "That's not what you said in the beginning. That's not what you said when you used the dragon imprisoning bell to trap me." Sima Yun felt like the sky had collapsed when he saw Xiaoyang's cold expression. However, he wanted to live, so he began to beg for mercy. King Wu's cultivation at the 7th level was not easy to come by. However, Xiaoyang would not give his enemies a chance. Chapter 1456. After killing Sima Yun, Xiaoyang also looted all the treasures on his body. It had to be said that this guy's items were much more abundant than the 1,000 Thunder Palace disciples. As for Sun Taidan, who was seriously injured and on the verge of death, Xiaoyang did not kill him. However, he naturally would not let go of his things. In fact, it did not matter whether Xiaoyang killed Sun Taidan or not. In this terrible wild thunder secret realm, even if he could survive, he might not be able to leave the 1,000 Thunder realm alive after leaving the secret realm. Therefore, although Sun Taidan was not dead, his final outcome was already determined. After quickly leaving the battlefield, Xiaoyang also quickly left the battlefield and continued to head north. Calculating the time, he only had 3 days left. If he could not find the ferocious beast mentioned by Tian Binu, he was afraid that he would have to say goodbye to a great opportunity. However, he was still very satisfied with the harvest of the 3 silent thunder beads. However, when it came to treasures, the more the better. No matter how many there were, Xiaoyang would not despise them in the slightest. It could be said that Xiaoyang's harvest in this trip to the wild thunder secret realm was very good. His physical body realm had also improved. If it was not for the improvement of his physical body realm, it would not have been as easy for him to defeat Sima Yun and the other 3. Now, Xiaoyang was still very satisfied. In the end, just as he was feeling good, a rough guy appeared in front of him and asked him to hand over the silent thunder bead. After hearing this, Xiaoyang was certain that this guy was probably from the Thousand Thunder Realm. After all, only they could sense the aura of the silent thunder bead and rob it. The two of them did not agree and started fighting. In the end, Xiaoyang had one more silent thunder bead. He did not know whether this guy snatched the silent thunder bead or obtained it through the white cloud thunder tribulation. Of course, this was no longer important. His silent thunder bead had already fallen into Xiaoyang's pocket. For a moment, Xiaoyang also remembered that after going through 3 white cloud lightning tribulations and several battles, he still hadn't changed his clothes. His clothes were tattered and his hair was dirty. It was easy for people to think that he was easy to bully. In this regard, Xiaoyang also began to enjoy it. He even removed a trace of the seal on one of the silent thunder beads, allowing its aura to be released. He did this to tell the cultivators in the Thousand Thunder Realm that he had the silent thunder bead on him, so they should quickly come and snatch it. It was like a rich man holding a lot of gold, swaggering on the street. Of course, it was hard to say who would end up robbing who in the end. With regards to his own strength, Xiaoyang was still very confident. To King Wu, 7th stage. How many people could be his opponent? Needless to say, Xiaoyang's swaggering approach also achieved some results. Not long after, a Thousand Thunder Realm disciple came to rob. It was just a pity that this pauper didn't have any silent thunder bead, and other things were also ordinary. The silent thunder bead was very rare, so it was naturally impossible for everyone to have it. Xiaoyang was also lucky and had a strong body, so he was able to obtain 3 with his own strength. Even if many people saw an opportunity, they didn't dare to make a move. After all, the risk was too great. Even if he withstood the white cloud lightning tribulation, it would be very difficult to deal with the unexpected situation later. In this day, there were also several Thousand Thunder Realm cultivators. They all came to rob Xiaoyang, but in the end they were robbed. The number of silent thunder beads in Xiaoyang's possession had also reached 5. Such a harvest could be said to be not small. Now, Xiaoyang was as happy as a landlord. Now he was more and more fascinated by the role of a fat pig. Snatching these fellows' silent thunder beads was much easier than spending all his effort to search for them. After walking for an unknown period of time, Xiaoyang suddenly saw the ground trembling. A deafening roar also came through. Suddenly, Xiaoyang's expression changed drastically. This was because he had vaguely sensed that the beast in front of him was probably the beast that Tian Bunu had mentioned. A ferocious beast comparable to an 8th level martial king. The thing that this beast was guarding was most likely something extraordinary. For a moment, Xiaoyang became much more energetic. He immediately increased his speed and rushed forward. Soon, Xiaoyang saw the beast. The beast was dozens of feet tall, and its arms were several times thicker than Xiaoyang's. It was an ape. There were 2 people circling around the ape, as if they wanted to have a showdown with the beast. It could be said that in the face of such a violent beast, even Xiaoyang would avoid it. It was really unwise to fight with such a beast. However, the 2 people were still fighting bitterly. Then one could imagine that without a huge benefit, they would not take such a big risk. Xiaoyang also quickly hid his aura and sneaked forward at an extremely slow speed. Now that he was close enough, he could see clearly 2 high-spirited cultivators. One of them was walking on a sword. He was dressed in white and looked very otherworldly. The other was dressed in the clothes of a Thousand Thunder Palace disciple. He held a big hammer in his hand and constantly dodged the beast's attacks. His hammer was covered in the power of thunder and lightning. Jade-faced White Sword's name is indeed extraordinary. Brother White looks really cool. The Thousand Thunder Palace disciple also teased. These words sounded a little sarcastic because the white-clothed person had been circling around and had not launched an attack. The white-clothed person also chuckled and said, "Bai Jian has long heard of the name of Thousand Thunder Realms, One Hammer, Decisive Thunder. Seeing you today is really admirable." There was nothing wrong with these words, but the Thousand Thunder Palace disciple's expression changed. Xiao Yang sized up the two people and was shocked. These two people's realms were half a step away from King Wu's 8th level. No wonder they were able to circle around this beast and wanted to kill it. It seemed like they had come prepared. The beast's intelligence was limited. If they could target it correctly, the two of them working together would have a chance of winning. "Brother White, we have already agreed to work together to kill the Berserk Thunder Ape. I will take my inner core, and you will take the Nightmare Thunder Fruit that this beast is guarding. If you continue like this, we won't be able to fight." Lei Dingyin said somewhat angrily. Bai Jian circled around behind the Berserk Thunder Ape and said, "Brother Lei, hold on for a while longer. I still haven't found this beast's weakness." When these words came out, Lei Dingyin was also very angry. How could this beast's weakness be so easy to find? Chapter 1457. But what else could she do? Lei Dingyin had no choice but to attack crazily from the front to attract the Berserk Thunder Ape's attention and let Bai Jian continue to look for its weakness. The Berserk Thunder Ape was, as its name suggested, it was crazy and violent. Every attack carried the power of thunder and lightning. Even lightning could be seen lingering on this beast's body. It had to be said that it looked very scary at first glance. But looking at it now, it was indeed very scary. Xiao Yang, who was hiding and watching the battle, was also secretly delighted. With Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian entangling the Berserk Thunder Ape, wasn't this a great opportunity? As for the Nightmare Thunder Fruit mentioned by Lei Dingyin, Xiao Yang was also very curious. Presumably, it was the most precious thing in this wild thunder secret realm. Xiao Yang's gaze also quickly wandered around the Berserk Thunder Ape's body, looking for traces of the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. But after looking around, he couldn't see where it was. In this barren, hilly area, coupled with the huge body of the Berserk Thunder Ape, it really wasn't an easy thing to find. In the fierce battle over there, Xiao Yang didn't dare to release his divine sense to search. If he was discovered, it wouldn't be easy to steal the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. For a time, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be a little anxious. But there was no other way. He could only search slowly. Xiao Yang saw that the battle over there was very fierce, so he concealed his aura and continued to move forward. The Berserk Lightning Ape was extremely ferocious. Each of its punches could cause space to explode. There were even lightning bolts extending from its fists, twisting and turning, catching people off guard. However, Lei Dingyin seemed to understand this beast's attack pattern very well. Every time, she was able to dodge the attack just right. Sometimes she really couldn't dodge, so she used the hammer in her hand to block. The hammer in her hand was also very special. It was the Thousand Thunder Palace's Holy Thunder Hammer. Not only could it release thunder and lightning attacks, it could also absorb thunder and lightning. This Holy Thunder Hammer could be said to be the most precious treasure of the Thousand Thunder Palace. This time, if Lei Dingyin didn't want to deal with the Berserk Thunder Ape, the palace master wouldn't give such a treasure to him. Even if Lei Dingyin had a divine tool like the Holy Thunder Hammer, facing the Berserk Thunder Ape head-on was not easy. Some injuries appeared on his body. Fortunately, he had tempered his body with thunder and lightning since he was young, so he naturally had some immunity to thunder and lightning attacks, so his injuries were not very serious. If he let Bai Jian face to face, then he would be in a very sorry state. However, because of the injury, Lei Dingyin did not feel frustrated at all. Instead, he fought with more vigor, and his attacks became more violent. Thunder and lightning on the Berserk Thunder Apes to attack Berserk Thunder Apes. However, the Berserk Lightning Ape received the baptism of lightning every day, which was many times more than Lei Dingyin's. Under a certain level of immunity, the damage caused to it was not much. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master had obviously considered this problem, so he asked Lei Dingyin to find Bai Jian to help him fight against the Berserk Thunder Ape. Jade-faced Bai Jian's name sounded like Xiao Bai's face, but Bai Jian's sword qi was especially sharp. He was famous for being tyrannical in this star field. It had to be said that Bai Jian's sword qi was the best choice to deal with the Berserk Thunder Ape. However, as Bai Jian flew, he couldn't find a suitable opening. This was because not only was the beast's skin thick, but it was also baptized by thunder and lightning day by day. It made every inch of its skin extremely tough. It was as if he couldn't find a place to start. This made Bai Jian frown slightly. It seemed that the Thousand Thunder Realm was really different. Whether it was a human or a berserk beast, they all had thick skin and were very resistant to attacks. Brother Bai, if you continue to dawdle like this, I will use up too much of my strength. How will we fight then? Lei Dingyin said in exasperation. Bai Jian smiled helplessly and said, It's your Thousand Thunder Realm that is blessed by the heavens. This beast's body is almost flawless. Lei Dingyin's face turned ugly as soon as he heard this. The truth was indeed so. If Bai Jian couldn't break through the beast's defense, could it be that they could only retreat? However, this made Lei Dingyin very unwilling to accept it. He probably wouldn't have the chance to enter the Berserk Thunder's secret realm next time. Even if he entered, he might not be able to get the Holy Thunder Hammer again. Lei Dingyin was also very worried now. He knew that as long as he defeated the Berserk Thunder Ape and obtained those things, he could officially enter the next realm. If he retreated this time, he didn't know how long he would have to wait. His preparation this time could be said to be very sufficient, but he didn't expect it to be ineffective now. Just as Lei Dingyin was feeling melancholy, he was careless and was punched by the Berserk Thunder Ape. He was directly sent flying. Although Lei Dingyin had a certain immunity to the power of thunder and lightning, it was only a part of it. The beast's strength was so great that Lei Dingyin immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned extremely ugly. Seeing this, Bai Jian immediately pulled away. Even Lei Dingyin's strong body couldn't withstand it. If his small body was hit, he would probably be seriously injured. Lei Dingyin stood up again as if nothing had happened. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His aura didn't suffer a blow. Instead, it became even more tyrannical. At this time, Lei Dingyin also felt a trace of familiar aura, the aura of the silent thunder pearl. Lei Dingyin was very surprised. He also looked up and saw a guy in tattered clothes wandering around the hilly area below as if he was looking for something. Suddenly, the corner of Lei Dingyin's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He didn't expect that someone would secretly take advantage of the fact that they were dealing with the Berserk Thunder Ape. That guy was only King Wu, rank 7, and had the guts to come to this place. It seemed that he had some tricks up his sleeve. Suddenly, Lei Dingyin thought of the person that the palace master emphasized and that he needed to pay attention to and eliminate. And in his hands, he also had the thing that Lei Dingyin wanted. I almost forgot about you. Since you're here, you should also complete your mission. Lei Dingyin muttered to himself. Now, Lei Dingyin had calmed down a lot. He wanted to see how powerful this temporary hired thug was. Fellow Taoist Xiaoyang, if you help us kill this beast, you'll be rewarded handsomely. Of course, you can continue to look for it. If the Berserk Thunder Ape doesn't die, the Nightmare Thunder Fruit won't appear. Lei Dingyin said somewhat jokingly. Chapter 1458. Once these words were spoken, Xiaoyang immediately stopped in his tracks as he helplessly let out a bitter laugh. Since he was discovered, it was probably impossible for him to continue to steal the Nightmare Thunder Fruit secretly. Others had fought so hard, and now someone else had stolen the fruits of their labor. No one would be able to tolerate that. At the same time, Xiaoyang also realized what the problem was. Previously, in order to lure the Thousand Thunder Realm cultivator to find trouble with him and then seize the silent thunder bead, he released some aura. The Thousand Thunder Realm cultivator was also very sensitive to the aura of the nightmare thunder fruit. After getting close, he was discovered by Lei Dingyin, which seemed reasonable. It was really a mistake. However, the other party said that they couldn't get the nightmare thunder fruit if they didn't kill the berserk thunder ape. It seemed that Lei Dingyin knew where the treasure was. In other words, as long as the berserk thunder ape didn't die, they had no chance to get the nightmare thunder fruit. Bai Jian, who was flying on the sword, also looked down and found Xiaoyang. He couldn't help but frown slightly. He and Lei Dingyin teamed up. One took the nightmare thunder fruit, and the other took the inner core. No matter what, it was easy to divide. However, with the addition of Xiaoyang, how were they going to split it? It was a good thing to be able to find Xiaoyang. If he really stole the nightmare thunder fruit, then he would be drawing water with a bamboo basket. Xiaoyang also smiled helplessly and said, "Fellow Taoist, you're thinking too much." Lei Dingyin also sneered. What kind of thinking was this? It was just Xiaoyang's sophistry. This beast's bones are extremely hard and can be used to refine magic weapons. Its skin and flesh are tough and can be refined into leather armor. Its defense is very high. This blood contains powerful spiritual power. If it is used to bathe, it will naturally strengthen the body. Fellow Taoist Xiaoyang, you weren't originally part of the plan, but with these things, you can also get a lot of improvement. Today, the three of us will work together to deal with this beast. What do you think? Lei Dingyin also spoke frankly after dodging the attack. A level 8 ferocious beast whose strength was comparable to King Wu's. It was easy to imagine how powerful it was. Its entire body could be said to be a treasure. Thinking about it this way, it seemed to be a pretty good deal. Furthermore, with the three of them working together, it would be much easier to deal with this beast. Bai Jian's desire had not been shaken. This made him feel that there was no harm in doing so. As long as he could obtain the nightmare thunder fruit, then everything was fine. Therefore, he didn't mind having one more helper. Fellow Xiaoyang, the flesh and blood of this beast is indeed very nourishing. Although it may not be able to help you break through to the next realm, it is naturally not a problem for you to advance by a large margin. Bai Jian immediately echoed. Looking at the otherworldly Bai Jian, Xiaoyang helplessly shook his head. To be honest, after entering the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, he indeed wanted to obtain the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. However, in the current situation, they were treating themselves as fools by dividing the good things among themselves. "I want the Nightmare Thunder Fruit," Xiaoyang also said very decisively. As soon as these words came out, Bai Jian's brows immediately furrowed. This guy really won't stop until he is shocked to death. His realm could be said to be the lowest among the three of them, but he wanted the best thing. This was a bit too much. "Ah, why?" Bai Jian's tone also carried a hint of anger. These words made Lei Dingyin feel very surprised. This Xiaoyang was really greedy. However, they had already been fighting with the wild thunder berserk ape for a long time and had no idea where to start. If this stalemate continued, they would have no choice but to leave the Wild Thunder Secret Realm when the effect of the lightning repelling pill was over. At that time, all their efforts would be in vain. In the past, it was not that there were no cultivators in the Thousand Thunder Secret Realm who could not challenge this Wild Thunder Berserk Ape. However, this beast's skin was rough and its flesh was thick. Every time it could endure until those people were forcefully expelled from the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. Why? Because, without me, you won't be able to take down this beast. Xiaoyang also had a calm and indifferent look as he said indifferently. Hearing this, Bai Jian's heart became even more furious. Suddenly, Bai Jian also let out a low growl and immediately formed a hand seal. A fierce aura also directly erupted. The flying sword under his feet also directly soared into the sky, emitting an extremely sharp edge. Following Bai Jian's low growl, the sword also fell straight down, slashing towards the Wild Thunder Berserk ape's head. The power of this sword also stunned Lei Dingyin and Xiaoyang for a moment. This was a bit too terrifying. Immediately, the corner of Lei Dingyin's mouth revealed a trace of a proud smile. It seemed that inviting Bai Jian to join forces was indeed a very good choice. The sharpness of this sword momentum and the strength of its edge could not help but make people feel a chill down their spines. It could be said that the sword in Bai Jian's hand was extremely sharp. In front of sharpness, even in the Thousand Thunder Realm, there was no one who could match Bai Jian. Even though Lei Dingyin's defense was extremely high due to body tempering, under full strength, he might not be able to block this sword. Boom! This sword also quickly descended, directly stabbing into the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape's head. The sharp sword Chi Assassin also revealed his sharpness, wreaking havoc on the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape's head. However, this furious sword only pierced into the beast's head by 30%. Whether it was the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape's skin, flesh, or bones, they were all extremely tough and difficult to break through. Even though Bai Jian's sword momentum was extraordinarily sharp, if it was unable to break through the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape's defense, then it was not enough to reach the apex. However, because the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape was also injured, it was instantly enraged. It constantly roared and crazily bombarded Bai Jian. For a moment, Bai Jian looked to be in a very sorry state. He constantly dodged, but was still struck by a few lightning bolts and was injured. Xiao Yang stood at the side, watching their performance, and did not have the slightest intention of helping. This beast's defense is a little too heaven-defying. Lei Dingyin witnessed everything that happened, and the corner of his mouth could not help but twitch. That incomparably tyrannical and sharp sword could be said to be stunning, but in the end, it only caused some superficial wounds. After the shock, it made people feel that everything was not so real. According to the information that Lei Dingyin had received previously, he could conclude that in these 100 years, the Wild Thunder Berserk Ape had become even more tyrannical than before. As a result, Lei Dingyin recalled the words of those who entered the secret realm in the past. Only one step. They calculated at the original scale, but in the end the beast was still one head taller and was difficult to surpass. Chapter 1459. Lei Dingyin waited bitterly for hundreds of years until he reached the 8th rank of King Wu. Only then did he bring the Holy Lightning Hammer into the Wild Thunder secret realm. He even joined forces with Bai Jian in order to defeat the Wild Thunder Ape and obtain its lightning core to raise his cultivation and aptitude to the next level. However, the current situation had already told him that it was almost impossible to succeed. At least, the chances didn't seem that great. Could it be that he could only leave the secret realm with hatred, like those who entered before? However, who knew how strong this beast would become the next time the secret realm was opened? Would the dummy thunder fruit have fully matured and been swallowed by it? Bai Jian, who had retreated to the side, frowned. He had never thought that the defensive power of the Berserk Lightning Ape would be so terrifying. His sword strike with all his strength had only caused a flesh wound. Wasn't this a little too disgusting? How was he going to fight? Although a large number of ants could gnaw an elephant to death, he could also continuously attack and exhaust the Berserk Thunder Ape to death. However, he didn't have that much time. For a moment, Bai Jian's heart was filled with despair. He couldn't fight at all. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Xiao Yang also didn't make a move, so he wasn't discovered by the Wild Thunder Ape. At the same time, he walked carefully, afraid of being noticed by the beast. No, this is my only chance to change. I can't give up. Lei Dingyin thought. He became more and more unconvinced and stubborn. This was his only chance to break through and surpass that person. How could he give up or lose it? Therefore, he had to do it. Brother Bai, this dummy thunder fruit will be given to fellow Xiao Yang. Naturally, you won't lose out. The beast's inner core can also help you break through to the 8th rank of King Wu. You've achieved your original goal. How about it? Lei Dingyin said very seriously. As long as they could kill the Wild Thunder Ape, nothing would be a problem. If Xiaoyang didn't join them, it would really be difficult for them to succeed. Bai Jian also frowned slightly as he fell into deep thought. Indeed, he needed to consider this matter carefully. If the higher-ups were to agree, then he would not be able to obtain anything. What would be the point of that? On the other hand, Xiaoyang raised his eyebrows. The way he looked at Lei Dingyin had also changed. He felt that this matter was not as simple as he thought. This Lei Dingyin could be said to have made a huge concession. One could not help but overthink. The corner of Xiaoyang's mouth also revealed a strange smile. He was very clear about what kind of plan Lei Dingyin had in his heart. Sometimes a person who had the capital to back down without a bottom line could only be said to be brewing a huge conspiracy. As long as we can kill this beast before we leave the secret realm, it's not impossible, Bai Jian said with certainty. As long as they could kill this beast in a short period of time, making some concessions and not leading to nothing was still acceptable. Although Bai Jian was a little uncomfortable with Xiaoyang, he had to accept the cruel reality in front of him. Sometimes being stubborn was useless. It would only lead to nothing. Moreover, the current situation was not something that could be solved by bravado. Hearing this, Lei Dingyin nodded solemnly and said, "Brother Xiaoyang, do you agree? This is our bottom line." "Yes." Xiaoyang also answered with certainty. Although Xiaoyang already knew that Lei Dingyin was definitely planning something or had a backup plan, he also believed that he would not let the other party succeed. Straightforward enough. Lei Dingyin was also beaming with joy. Regarding Xiaoyang, Supreme Elder Tianbinu had a very high opinion of him. The day before entering the secret realm, he even specially told Xiaoyang to bring him along to hunt the wild thunder ape. Originally, Lei Dingyin did not believe it. However, regardless of whether he believed it or not, he could only try his luck. "How do we fight?" Bai Jian also asked the question in his heart. Now that there was a new battle force, they naturally could not continue to fight according to the previous strategy. They had to make adjustments. Lei Dingyin's gaze also landed on Xiaoyang. He really didn't know much about this fellow Taoist. Although there was the palace master's promotion previously, he was disdainful. If it were not for the Supreme Elder's obstruction, he would have already snatched the flying ship. "Lei Dingyin, attack with all your strength to attract its attention." Xiaoyang also immediately said. There was no need to change what Lei Dingyin was doing. This was because once he was not restrained, it would be difficult for Bai Jian to get close and launch an effective attack. "Brother Bai Jian, you only need to aim at the wild thunder ape's heart and attack. Remember, as long as you aim at that point, you will be able to penetrate the stone with dripping water." Xiaoyang also quickly made arrangements. After Lei Dingyin agreed to the conditions, Xiaoyang had already formed a strategy in his heart. Only in this way could they reasonably kill the wild thunder ape. When these words came out, Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian could not help but be stunned. This was not any adjustment to their previous strategy at all. If that's the case, they'll be able to do everything. Then, Xiaoyang, what will you do? Or would you be a commander? After feeling the gazes of the two, Xiaoyang also helplessly smiled bitterly. There was no problem with their previous strategy. It was just that they did not have enough strength. Therefore, they were unable to kill the wild thunder ape and even suffered losses. However, with his participation, it was naturally different. I will quietly approach the wild thunder ape and then launch some special attacks to restrict it," Xiaoyang said. As soon as these words came out, the two helplessly shook their heads again. Xiaoyang was keeping them in suspense, but now they could no longer care so much. Time was tight. If they wasted too much time, then even if they had a chance, it would become a lack of time. Lei Dingyin was obviously a very fierce person. After deciding on the strategy, he roared and raised the holy lightning hammer high. At the same time, the power in his body was constantly gathering towards it. If he wanted to restrain the wild thunder ape, then he must have enough strength to make it unable to be distracted. In fact, he even needed to give Bai Jian and Xiaoyang an opportunity so that they could heavily injure him. Beast, eat my hammer. Chapter 1460. Lei Dingyin roared angrily. Immediately, the holy lightning hammer in his hand smashed down. Immediately, a huge bolt of lightning fell from the sky and bombarded the berserk lightning ape's head. It was a spectacular sight. This bolt of lightning seemed to carry the might of the heavens and was unparalleled. It seemed that because Lei Dingyin used the holy lightning hammer with all his strength, even the dark clouds above their heads began to surge. Bursts of thunder and lightning seemed to be attracted and were building momentum. Boom! This bolt of lightning also hit the berserk lightning ape's head. Immediately, the beast felt pain and was extremely angry. It waved its fist and began to counterattack Lei Dingyin. At this moment, Bai Jian had already found his position. With a wave of his hand, the sword that was originally inserted into the berserk lightning ape's head appeared in his hand once again. When Bai Jian attacked again, his body was immediately surrounded by sword qi. Bai Jian and Lei Dingyin were not very close to each other. However, he still felt that his skin was being cut by the sword qi. It was a little stinging pain. That was only the aura. If it really landed on his body, how terrifying would the power be? Fortunately, Bai Jian was not an enemy but an ally. The stronger his teammates were, the more at ease Lei Dingyin would be, because only in this way would they have a chance to kill this beast. The sword that was accumulating power also directly pierced the berserk lightning ape's flesh. Although it only broke the skin, it was enough. What Bai Jian needed to do now was to follow Xiao Yang's instructions and attack a single point. This way, he would naturally be able to break through his defense at a single point. Seeing that the two of them were attacking with all their strength, Xiao Yang did not relax in the slightest. He concealed his aura and quickly arrived above the berserk lightning ape's head. Soon, he saw the wound caused by Bai Jian's sword. Although it was not very deep, it still broke the skin, and some blood could be seen flowing out. The lightning that appeared from time to time also made Xiao Yang a little annoyed. He had no choice but to take action to defend. This would inevitably alarm this beast. Fortunately, although the current Xiao Yang was standing on the head of the violent lightning ape, he was like an ant in comparison. In addition, the ape's attention was diverted, so it was simply unable to discover him. Xiao Yang took a deep breath and pressed his palm on the beast's wound. He released the poison and injected it into the berserk lightning ape's blood. The blood flowed through the body and finally returned to the heart. As long as the blood was flowing, the poison would follow the blood and spread throughout the body. Xiao Yang's idea was very simple. Since this beast's defense was amazing, he could only start from other places. He wanted to see if this beast's internal organs were as tough as its skin, flesh, and bones. Xiao Yang was very confident in his poison. If he used his full strength, even King Wu, a cultivator of the 8th step, would die. Although this beast's strength was comparable to King Wu's 8th step and its body was incomparably tyrannical, its internal organs were naturally much weaker under such protection. It could be said that this was the easiest method Xiao Yang could think of. It was too difficult to attack from the outside. However, if he attacked from the inside, it would be much easier. The poison was continuously injected into the violent lightning ape's body, but the beast did not notice it at all. It was still attacking Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian, who were causing external injuries to it. Of course, this was also related to Xiao Yang's poison. Although the poison was incomparably fierce, it could paralyze the opponent, causing them to not feel the slightest pain. In addition, this beast could not feel the circulation of the poison in its body. Naturally, it was unable to detect and target it. Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian were beaten to a miserable state. Although they had already exceeded their usual performance, it was still very difficult to face this fierce, violent lightning ape head-on. During this period of time, each of them had suffered a certain degree of injury. Especially Lei Dingyin, who was a head-on existence, was severely injured. He was hit twice by the violent lightning ape and was in great pain. However, Xiaoyang had been standing on the violent lightning ape's head all this time and did not know what he was doing. Just as they were about to curse out loud, they realized that the violent lightning ape's movements had become a little slower. This change made the two of them extremely happy. Now, they finally understood what Xiaoyang meant when he said that they would be restricted. The violent lightning ape's speed had become slower, which meant that they had more opportunities to dodge. Now, Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian also saw hope. If Xiaoyang could give them more restrictions, then it was really possible for them to defeat the violent lightning ape. In the Thousand Thunder Palace, the palace master and Tianbianu sat on the high seat. Below them were many elders and more outstanding disciples of the younger generation. Their expressions looked especially serious. Palace Master, another senior brother's eternal light has been extinguished. A disciple rushed in and said in a panic. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master nodded and waved his hand, indicating that disciple to leave. Seeing this, the disciple left with a guilty conscience. 21 disciples have already fallen. Among them, 4 of them were King Wu rank 7. Today is only the 5th day. Compared to the previous few times, this loss is much greater. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master sighed helplessly. Tianbianu nodded with a smile and said, "As long as Dingyin succeeds, these sacrifices are worth it. I guess these sacrifices are caused by dealing with those bastards." Hearing these words, the Hall Master's expression became much better. Soon after, it became much more fanatical. If Dingyin succeeds, then he will definitely reach the same height as his elder brother. In that case, our Thousand Thunder Realm will probably become an existence second only to the Divine Realm. The Thousand Thunder Palace Master became more and more excited. Tianbianu had lived for so long that he could no longer show his emotions. However, when he thought of another monster appearing in the Thousand Thunder Palace, a trace of pride appeared on his face. Should we take down the flying ship now as a gift for Dingyin? The Thousand Thunder Palace Master asked. Tianbianu nodded slightly and said, "There's only a bunch of mobs on the flying ship. There's no need to worry about Dingyin. It's not bad to let our disciples who didn't go to the secret realm experience the battle." Hearing this, the Thousand Thunder Palace Master understood what he meant and immediately gave the order. Chapter 1461. The airship floated alone outside the Thousand Thunder Realm. On the bow of the ship, Qin Mingho and the Baldy were on full alert. They didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. During these days, Holy Lord of Dark Night and Fei, Yi didn't feel any hostility from the two and would sometimes come over to talk to them. Sometimes, although their opinions on cultivation were a little different, they still respected each other and didn't have any friction. They even admired each other. 7 or 8 days had passed, and Xiaoyang still hadn't returned, which made Holy Lord of Dark Night a little worried. But fortunately, the Thousand Thunder Realm didn't make any movements, which meant that they were still relatively amiable. All of a sudden, Qin Mingho also stood up abruptly and became extremely vigilant. Seeing this, the Baldy immediately looked into the distance and frowned. "It's the cultivators of the Thousand Thunder Realm. It seems that they really are hiding evil intentions," Qin Mingho said worriedly. Qin Mingho was half-step King Wu level 8, and Xiaoyang had left him an explosive pill. His strength couldn't be underestimated and could dominate the world. However, this was the territory of the Thousand Thunder Realm, and he couldn't retreat. Therefore, this would inevitably be a bitter battle. The Baldy's expression also changed greatly. Although the other party's intentions had not yet been exposed, for a Thousand Thunder Realm cultivator, who had always been arrogant, to come at this juncture, this matter naturally did not seem so simple. After a while, the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm stopped more than 300 meters away from the airship, eyeing it covetously. "May I know why fellow cultivators of the Thousand Thunder Realm have come to visit at this time?" The Baldy asked without the slightest fear. At this time, a tall man walked out and said, "I'm Zhu Hujuan of the Thousand Thunder Palace. I'm here to inform you that fellow cultivator Xiaoyang unfortunately died in the Wild Thunder Secret Realm. Before his airship entered the Secret Realm, he said that if he didn't come out, this airship would be given to our Thousand Thunder Palace as a thank you gift. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Holy Lord of Dark Night and the others changed greatly. They didn't dare to believe the authenticity of these words. However, Xiaoyang didn't come back, but the people who came were from the Thousand Thunder Realm. This made them think carefully. At this time, the bald man also laughed and said, "You bastards, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Don't you want the airship? Come and get it if you have the ability." After he finished speaking, the baldy also shouted loudly and immediately rushed out. He looked at them coldly, his battle intent brilliant. Seeing this, Chun Mingho didn't dare to hesitate and immediately followed behind Baldy. Since they were going to fight, how could he be willing to back down? Baldy and Chun Mingho both knew that Xiaoyang was not dead. This was because they had been staying on the airship all this time, and the airship had not changed at all. If Xiaoyang really died, then the airship would naturally become ownerless. However, the airship wasn't ownerless now. That's right. We want the airship. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and get lost. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you. Zhu Hejuan also had a ferocious look on his face. Since they had completely shed all pretenses, there was naturally no need for them to continue acting. Moreover, the other party wasn't stupid. They didn't believe their words at all. Therefore, using their fists to do the talking was the only way now. In the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, there were constantly aftershocks of the earthquake. This was because the berserk lightning ape was currently in a completely enraged state. Every punch or kick would cause the earth to tremble unceasingly. Some of the mountains were even directly shattered under this powerful force. From this, it could be seen how terrifying this beast's strength was. The Wild Thunder Berserk ape's speed wasn't very fast to begin with. In addition to being tortured by Xiaoyang's poison, its speed also became extremely slow. Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian sighed in their hearts. If Xiaoyang didn't join in, it would be almost impossible for the two of them to get rid of the Wild Thunder Berserk ape. It wouldn't be as easy as it was now. After dodging many of the attacks, they began to launch a frenzied counterattack. Xiaoyang, who was standing on the Wild Thunder Berserk ape's head, was still not discovered. He was still continuously releasing his poison, wanting to directly poison the beast to death. As for the Wild Thunder Berserk ape, although it felt that its speed had slowed down, it couldn't find the source of the problem. It could only be said that its attention was completely drawn by Lei Dingyin and Bai Jian. It couldn't find anything wrong with some details. It seems that with my poison, it won't be easy to poison this Wild Thunder Berserk ape now. Xiaoyang couldn't help but bitterly smile helplessly. Although the internal organs of the Wild Thunder Berserk ape had begun to corrode, the speed was too slow. By the time it was completely corroded, they would have already left the secret realm. Therefore, he had no choice but to think of other ways. Soon, Xiaoyang's gaze fell on Bai Jian. It seemed that killing the Wild Thunder Berserk ape was still up to him. Bai Jian, stop attacking a little. Leave it to me. You first attract the beast's attention. After Xiaoyang finished speaking, he also jumped down from the Wild Thunder Berserk ape's head and landed on its chest. Bai Jian immediately stopped when he heard this. He knew that Xiaoyang naturally had his reasons for saying this. Xiaoyang saw that there was a huge wound on the Wild Thunder Berserk ape's heart, and the white bones were exposed. Even the white bones had many cracks, which was the result of Bai Jian's attack. In this way, it wasn't impossible to kill the Wild Thunder Berserk ape. Immediately, Xiaoyang also roared angrily, and all the poison in his body was activated. Thousand poison hands. Following a fierce roar, Xiaoyang also slapped out with his palm. Immediately, countless green palm energy also struck out, and all of them hit the white bones that were full of cracks. The strength in this round seemed to be light, but the wild thunder berserk ape roared in pain. At the same time, it also waved a fist and directly hit Xiaoyang's body. Immediately, Xiaoyang felt as if a mountain had hit his body, and he was directly sent flying. Now, attack that point with all your strength, and pierce the beast's heart with one sword. As he was sent flying, Xiaoyang also immediately shouted. Time was of the essence, and now was the best time to kill the wild thunder berserk ape. Hearing this, Bai Jian didn't dare to relax at all. Immediately, countless flying swords appeared around him. Chapter 1462. Die for me! Bai Jian roared. Countless sword qi had already appeared around his body. It could be said that there were tens of thousands of them. Every sword qi was incomparably tyrannical. Even the space began to shatter and become disordered under the sword qi's slashing. How could Bai Jian not be excited when he finally had such an opportunity to kill the violent ape? It could be said that he had poured all of his strength into the sword. This was his chance to kill the violent ape. How could he let it slip by? Moreover, they had been fighting with this beast for a long time. There was not much time left before they left the secret realm. It had to be like this. Suddenly, tens of thousands of sword qi were like a long dragon. They let out an angry roar and rushed towards the violent ape's chest. The corner of Lei Dingyin's mouth twitched. He could be said to be the second genius in the Thousand Thunder realm. However, facing Bai Jian's attack, he really did not have the confidence to block it. This man who only focused on sharpness was indeed extraordinary. Xiaoyang looked at the long sword that was like a dragon, as the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. He had indeed not misjudged Bai Jian. Bai Jian's attack could be said to be the sharpest amongst the three of them. Moreover, it seemed that only he was able to deal the most lethal blow to the wild, lightning berserk ape. Although the sword qi had not arrived yet, Xiaoyang already knew in his heart that the violent thunder ape's life was over. Rumble! Countless sword qi constantly attacked the violent ape's chest. Its ribs that were full of cracks were no longer as hard as before after being eroded by Xiaoyang's poison. They directly broke apart. Roar! The berserk lightning ape howled in pain. Its heart was being sliced apart by this powerful sword. The sword qi continued to grind away at the berserk thunder ape's life force. It was extremely valiant. Not long after, the berserk thunder ape's heart was cut into pieces. Even its other internal organs had suffered quite a bit of damage. Boom! The violent ape that had lost its life force finally turned into a corpse. It fell to the ground and no longer moved. Seeing the berserk thunder ape fall to the ground, Lei Dingyin was also very excited. Even his hands began to tremble. Killing the violent ape was something that even his older brother couldn't do. But today he had done it. For a moment, Lei Dingyin felt that everything seemed unreal. It was as if everything was an illusion. However, when he saw the blood that flowed out, he knew that it was very real. It was just that the result was somewhat difficult for him to accept, and he did not dare to believe it. He had accomplished something that none of the past geniuses of the Thousand Thunder Palace had been able to accomplish, and he himself would become even stronger as a result, becoming the strongest genius of the Thousand Thunder Palace, the genius with the highest aptitude. Bai Jian also heaved a sigh of relief, but his face had already turned pale. Previously, in the battle with the violent ape, he had also suffered numerous injuries, and this sword strike was even more extraordinary, even exhausting all of his strength. At this moment, the remaining power also began to collide, but he was unable to suppress it. Xiaoyang was blasted 100 feet away, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. At the same time, he also felt that many of the bones in his body had broken, and even his mind had become somewhat absent-minded. However, there was only one thought in Xiaoyang's mind at this moment, and that was the nightmare thunder fruit. Soon after, Xiaoyang also forcefully endured the intense pain and rushed over. What he saw was Lei Dingyin walking step by step towards the violent ape, while Bai Jian sat on a mountain top, adjusting the power in his body. Lei Dingyin, you said that the Nightmare Thunder Fruit would appear after killing the Berserk Thunder Ape. Where is it now? Xiao Yang also forcefully suppressed his injuries and shouted. Now that the biggest problem had been solved, he was very curious about where the Nightmare Thunder Fruit was. At this moment, Bai Jian also opened his eyes, and his gaze fell on Lei Dingyin. Lei Dingyin glanced at the two of them and said with a smile, "Don't be impatient, you will see it in a while." When these words came out, Xiao Yang and Bai Jian couldn't help but be stunned. They really didn't understand what Lei Dingyin meant. Until now, why was he still keeping them in suspense? The Nightmare Thunder Fruit isn't outside, but underground, sealed by the secret realm. The way to break the seal is to use the blood of the Berserk Thunder Ape. The blood of this beast is also the best nourishment, and it can make the Nightmare Thunder Fruit mature faster. Lei Dingyin saw that they were a little confused and explained very patiently. When these words came out, Xiao Yang's expression also changed subconsciously. Previously, Lei Dingyin threw out the benefits of using blood to refine the body, but now it seemed that it was simply nonsense. However, sometimes in order to obtain benefits, what kind of lies would not be told? Xiao Yang wasn't that stupid. He also floated in the air, but his gaze didn't have the slightest intention of leaving Lei Dingyin. After all, Lei Dingyin was clear about everything here. If he were to be the first to obtain it, how could Xiao Yang be willing to accept it? However, the Nightmare Thunder Fruit hadn't appeared yet, and it wasn't the time to fall out. I have already said that I only want the dummy Thunder Fruits. It is up to all of you to decide how to split the remaining items. Xiao Yang once again emphasized. When Lei Dingyin heard this, he frowned. He really didn't like this tone. However, he didn't flare up and he only sneered. Rumble. At this moment, the ground began to tremble, and suddenly, a sapling also pierced through the ground and grew out. At this moment, the blood of the Berserk Thunder Ape also rushed towards the sapling, and under the supply of a huge amount of blood, the sapling grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was a bare tree, and there weren't any leaves on it. Looking at the tree that suddenly appeared, the corners of Xiao Yang's mouth curled up slightly. He was very clear that this was what he wanted. Lei Dingyin's gaze became fanatical as he looked at the tree. He knew what this thing that appeared on the tree was, and how important it was to him if he had the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. Even if he entered that realm, it would only be a matter of time. That step was in the Thousand Thunder Realm, and no one had entered it for tens of thousands of years. And such an opportunity was placed in front of him. Xiao Yang's gaze also became more fervent. He also wanted it. The tree quickly grew into a towering tree, but it didn't have any leaves and it looked very awkward. On one of the branches, there was a fruit. Chapter 1463. At this moment, the three of them were completely attracted by the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. The Nightmare Thunder Fruit looked like a small ball of lightning. Although it had electricity, it did not have any violent aura. It was as if everything had calmed down. Lei Dingyin swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This was what he wanted. If he could obtain the Nightmare Thunder Fruit, then his aptitude would increase once again, and he might even step into the 8th rank Martial King realm. It was possible for him to reach the legendary realm. In this quiet desert, he could almost hear his own heartbeat. Everything was so real, but it was hard to believe. At this point, everything seemed a little illusory. Everything happened too quickly. He felt that he had no time to react at all. However, this reality made him feel that he was one step closer to his dream. It was very possible that he could reach the sky in a single bound. It was not possible, it was certain. As long as he obtained the Nightmare Thunder Fruit and the Violent Thunder Ape's inner elixir, he would be able to break through to King Wu level 9 in the shortest time possible. At that time, he would seize Xiao Yang's flying ship and enter the realm of the gods. At that time, he would marry the princess of the realm of the gods with his strength and aptitude. Then he would receive the full support of the realm of the gods and the Thousand Thunder realm. Then he would definitely be able to reach that realm. Everything was right in front of him. All the preparation and hard work could finally be reaped at this moment. As long as he stretched out his hand, everything would be within his reach. Lei Dingyin was stunned. He walked forward step by step toward the Nightmare Thunder Fruit. Not only could the Nightmare Thunder Fruit increase one's cultivation, but it could also change one's foundation. Moreover, it was especially suitable for Thousand Thunder Realm cultivators like them. Soon, Bai Jian noticed that Lei Dingyin was walking toward the Nightmare Thunder Fruit and immediately scolded him. "Brother Lei, this Nightmare Thunder Fruit belongs to Taoist Xiaoyang," Bai Jian said very seriously. Although Bai Jian was very disdainful of Xiaoyang before, he also realized that without Xiaoyang, they would not have been able to defeat that beast. It could be said that they were able to reach this stage because of Xiaoyang's methods. Xiaoyang was surprised to hear Bai Jian speak up to defend him. Xiaoyang looked at this arrogant sword cultivator in a new light. When Lei Dingyin heard this sound, a sense of disgust arose from the bottom of his heart. It was as if this was the most unpleasant sound to hear. His dream was right in front of him, so how could he give it to someone else? Furthermore, they were only invited chess pieces. Previously, they needed their help, so they were more polite. But now they had achieved their purpose, so there was no need for them to exist anymore. A trace of ruthlessness rose from the bottom of Lei Dingyin's heart. He could not help but tighten his grip on the sacred lightning hammer. Xiaoyang felt the subtle atmosphere, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. Sure enough, the situation was similar to what he had guessed. He slowly closed his eyes and sensed the changes in the airship. Fortunately, those who went there were only small fries. With Chan Mingho and Baldy's abilities, they could still handle it. Therefore, he was not in a hurry. Instead, he wanted to see what kind of storm Lei Dingyin could stir up. The Wild Thunder Secret Realm belongs to our Thousand Thunder Realm. We were also the ones who allowed you to enter the secret realm. I also contributed to the killing of the violent ape. Don't tell me I didn't do anything? Lei Dingyin sneered. Lei Dingyin was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he adjusted his aura. He was also prepared to make a move at any time to deal with these chess pieces that should not continue to exist. Some chess pieces were no longer useful. If they knew something, then they naturally needed to be destroyed in time. This way, he could give himself a guarantee. Hearing this, Bai Jian wanted to mention the previous agreement. However, when the words reached his mouth, he could not say it. He and Xiaoyang had taken the best things, but it was somewhat unreasonable to let the host, Lei Dingyin, take the worst things. After hesitating for a while, Bai Jian slowly said, "I'll give you the inner core that belongs to me. I want the skin, flesh, and bones." This was the only solution that Bai Jian could think of, although he was the one who completed the final attack. The three of them were indispensable. Now, it seemed that his contribution was the least. Xiaoyang looked at Bai Jian with admiration in his eyes. Although this guy was arrogant, he was also a friend that was worth making. At the very least, his character was not bad. All right, then you won't have a share of the inner core. However, the skin and flesh are great supplements, and the bones can be forged into good defensive equipment. I'm also very tempted, Lei Dingyin said gloomily. As soon as he said that, Bai Jian's expression changed drastically. Could it be that Lei Dingyin wanted to take everything for himself? Wasn't this a little too careless? Moreover, he and Xiaoyang had put in effort. Was he going to make a wedding dress for him? Bai Jian was also furious. He used to think that the Thousand Thunder Realm had a good reputation, and after interacting with Lei Dingyin these days, he felt that Lei Dingyin was also very good. However, all his impressions began to change drastically now. Looking at Xiaoyang again, he still looked leisurely and did not seem to be annoyed or angry at all. The reason why Xiaoyang acted as usual was that he had already expected such an outcome. Ever since he entered the Thousand Thunder Realm, he had sensed that something was wrong. Later on, when the Thousand Thunder Realm cultivators appeared to snatch the silent thunder bead, he already knew what these people were like. Thinking about it, these things were not strange at all. Now, Xiaoyang was very curious about what kind of trump card Lei Dingyin had that he actually dared to turn against the two of them. After all, no matter how strong Lei Dingyin was, he was still in the same realm as Bai Jian. Coupled with him, Xiaoyang, could he really beat them? However, it was impossible for Lei Dingyin to be unprepared. However, where exactly was he relying on? Before figuring out what the other party's trump card was, Xiaoyang might as well wait a little longer. Lei Dingyin had a cold look, and the sneer on the corner of his mouth became more and more intense. Lei Dingyin, you actually want to take everything for yourself. Your appetite is really big. Do you think you can swallow it all? My sword won't agree to it. As Bai Jian spoke, he pointed his sword at Lei Dingyin and said angrily, Chapter 1464. Outside the Thousand Thunder Realm, Chen Mingho and the Baldi fought a bitter battle and repelled all the disciples of the Thousand Thunder Palace. With Chen Mingho's cultivation of a half step into the 8th step Martial King, he had an absolute advantage, and the Baldi and his subordinates were living a life of licking blood from their blades, so their fighting strength was naturally not weak. I have to say the cultivators of the Thousand Thunder Realm are really stronger than those of other places, Chen Mingho said with a wry smile. The Baldi shrugged helplessly and said, It can't be helped. The people here are all monsters. They use thunder and lightning to refine their bodies every day. Although their spiritual power isn't very strong, their physical strength is really too strong. The corners of Holy Lord Dark Knight's mouth twitched slightly. He had also seen the battle just now. It was indeed very fierce. It had to be said that the people of the Thousand Thunder Realm were really too strong. Even with Chen Mingho's strength, the other party was still able to tenaciously launch attacks, and they were not weak. I wonder how Xiaoyang is now, Holy Lord Dark Knight said worriedly. The Baldi was not worried at all. He said, Boss is very powerful and he has an explosive pill. When King Wu reaches rank 8, who in the Thousand Thunder Realm can stop him? I think Boss must have found something good, so he's not willing to come back. Chen Mingho had not seen Xiaoyang's strength, so he had some doubts, but he did not say anything. However, after thinking about it, even the Baldi was convinced of Xiaoyang's strength. This was enough to prove Xiaoyang's strength. It's just that this time, only some elite disciples came. We don't know who will come next time. We don't know when Boss will come back, so things are very difficult to handle. Chen Mingho's tone was also very helpless. It could be said that this matter had already exceeded their expectations, so they had to think more about it. If some old monsters appeared, then this matter would definitely become even more serious. Chen Mingho even wanted to say that they should abandon the flying ship and run for their lives. However, when he thought of his promise to Xiaoyang, the words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped. Moreover, he could not be sure when Xiaoyang would come back. At that time, if something were to happen, the situation would become even more chaotic. At this moment, Chen Mingho could not help but feel a headache. You're a rank 8 half-step King Wu, and you have an explosive pill. What are you afraid of? Even if the Thousand Thunder Palace's palace master comes, you can still compete with him. If you can win, you'll be famous overseas, brother, the Baldi said very excitedly. Chen Mingho only smiled bitterly and shook his head. Although he said that he had already understood the characteristics of Thousand Thunder Realm cultivators. Their physical strength was simply too strong. It was simply impossible to measure them with the standards of ordinary cultivators. If it weren't for the characteristics of the Thousand Thunder Realm, Chen Mingho wouldn't have felt so much pressure. He even felt that he had a chance to win. However, this place was still the territory of the Thousand Thunder Realm. How could he not care about anything? After a while, Chen Mingho stood up again. He looked down and saw a few figures rushing up aggressively. Baldi, brace yourself. The second wave of attack is coming. Chen Mingho said very seriously. When the Baldy heard this, he immediately cursed and said, I didn't expect these guys to be so difficult to deal with. This time we'll go on a killing spree and let them know how powerful we are. Chun Mingho also frowned slightly. He had previously told the Baldy not to kill. The reason was very simple. If they killed, there would be a blood feud, and things would only get worse. Before Xiaoyang returned, no matter what, they had to deal with it properly and not complicate things. If the other party doesn't kill, we'll try our best not to kill, Chen Mingho said earnestly. The other party's aura was also getting closer and closer. This also made Chen Mingho feel that things were probably out of their control. In the Wild Thunder Secret Realm, Bai Jian's mood was very bad. He never thought that Lei Dingyin was actually a villain who went back on his words. This hypocrite had disguised himself too well. Now his true colors had been exposed. How could he not be angry that he had misjudged him? Now, Bai Jian also wished that he could poke a few holes in Lei Dingyin to vent the hatred in his heart. When Lei Dingyin heard Bai Jian's words, he laughed loudly. Now, Bai Jian was a joke in Lei Dingyin's eyes. With his small body, he was seriously injured after being attacked by the violent ape several times. He could not exert any strength at all. He actually dared to hoot in front of him. If this was not courting death, what was he doing? Looking at Lei Dingyin's laughter, Bai Jian could not help but become angrier. He also held his sword tightly and said, What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at your ignorance. You actually think that you still have the ability to fight with me? Don't you think that this is very funny? Lei Dingyin said disdainfully. When these words were spoken, Bai Jian's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Soon after, his gaze turned toward Xiaoyang. As the person who suffered the most losses, he actually did not say anything. This was really strange. Bai Jian was fighting for justice for him, but he still acted as if nothing had happened? Could it be that they had colluded before this? For a moment, Bai Jian's mind could not help but have some doubts. I might not be afraid of you. Bai Jian roared angrily, and suddenly, a strong sword intent erupted from his body. He really could not swallow this anger. If he did not stand up, he was afraid that there would be a knot in his heart for the rest of his life. It might even become an obstacle to breaking through in the future. Therefore, he needed to prevent this from happening. The sword intent that he, Bai Jian, cultivated was to be happy. If he did not dare to fight because of his emotions, it would be denying his previous cultivation. This would undoubtedly be a huge blow to him. Therefore, Bai Jian could not avoid the battle. After sensing the sharp sword essence, Lei Dingyin's brows furrowed slightly. This guy's sword could even break the violent lightning ape's ribs. One could imagine how powerful it was. One sword could also destroy all the vitality of the violent ape. This showed how high his attainment was. If they were to meet force with force, there would definitely be some losses. Moreover, Xiaoyang was eyeing covetously from the side. Do you think that you can still fight? As Lei Dingyin spoke, he looked at Bai Jian, and his hands began to form hand seals continuously. In the next moment, Bai Jian's sword momentum suddenly became dispirited. A stream of black blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Chapter 1465. Lei Dingyin only made a few hand seals towards Bai Jian, and black blood flowed out from the corner of Bai Jian's mouth. It was obvious how sinister the method was. When did you poison me? Bai Jian angrily roared. This made Bai Jian really puzzled. When did he get poisoned? He didn't even know. Now, Bai Jian's gaze towards Lei Dingyin changed again. Previously, he thought that Lei Dingyin might be unable to control his rationality due to his inner desire after seeing the dark thunder fruit. He actually poisoned him. It could only be said that it was premeditated. This guy was really despicable. Lei Dingyin looked very proud and said, I don't have to tell you this. I want to see how much power jade-faced white sword can exert in this situation. As he said that, Lei Dingyin also had a somewhat playful expression. Now he was interested in playing with Bai Jian. The spiritual power in Bai Jian's body was constantly rioting, and the poison was eroding his internal organs. For a moment, it could be said that he was suffering unspeakably. As long as you kneel down and beg me, I will give you the antidote. Lei Dingyin's smile became more and more rampant. Now, Bai Jian finally understood why Xiaoyang didn't do anything. He probably expected this situation from the beginning. However, there was one thing that Bai Jian didn't understand. Since Xiaoyang knew, why did he still help? Don't even think about it. Bai Jian groaned. Under anger, he spat out another mouthful of black blood. Now, Bai Jian's vision was a little black, and his mind was a little unclear. The strength of the poison made him somewhat helpless. TSK, look at your current appearance. How can you be worthy of the word jade-faced? If you still don't kneel down, I'm afraid there will no longer be a jade-faced white sword in the future. Lei Dingyin still had a playful look and said with a smile, playing with a genius of the same level as himself. Lei Dingyin's heart also had a kind of pleasure that he had never felt before. So what if jade-faced white sword was powerful? Under their calculations, he could only bitterly hold on and could even lose his life at any time. Xiaoyang looked at the strand of black blood and could only smile bitterly. He did not expect that although Bai Jian's cultivation was high, he was still lacking in terms of guarding against others. However, on second thought, this poison was not something that an ordinary person could defend against. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaoyang practiced the art of poison, it would have been difficult for him to detect the problem. Even if I, Bai Jian, die, I will not die kneeling. At worst, we'll fight to the death. Bai Jian roared angrily and cut his finger. Dark red blood dripped onto his sword. After the treasured sword absorbed Bai Jian's blood, it slowly rose and shone with an even sharper sword light. The sharpness of the sword had already caused the space around it to shatter before it was even used. From this, it could be seen how powerful this sword was. Suddenly, Lei Dingyin's expression changed. He did not expect Bai Jian's counterattack to be so strong. Bai Jian also had the cultivation of King Wu, who was half a step into the 8th level. In addition, he traveled the world with his will. How could he possibly compromise? The more difficult the situation was, the more it could stimulate the bloodlust in his heart. After Lei Dingyin felt the terror of the sword intent again, he felt a little weak in his heart and did not dare to meet it head-on. He could even feel that if he allowed Bai Jian to complete the sword in this desperate situation, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Moreover, it would be a hidden injury that could not be healed for hundreds of years. Do you think that's all I've done? The battle of a trapped beast is especially fierce. We have already expected it. Lei Dingyin laughed wildly and said, Bai Jian did not have the mood to listen to what Lei Dingyin had to say. He only wanted to fight to the death. Even if he had to die, he would drag Lei Dingyin down with him. Therefore, he could not wait to pour all his strength and even his life into this sword to complete his sword in this desperate situation. This would also become his strongest sword strike. However, at this moment, as Lei Dingyin's hand seal ended, the dark clouds in the sky gathered together. Rumble! In an instant, countless bolts of lightning fell rapidly. The lightning-repelling pill did have the effect of being immune to lightning. However, it could also be used as a guide to gather more lightning to attack wildly. This was the most powerful point of the lightning-repelling pill. It could also be said that because of this point, Lei Dingyin could be said to be invincible in the wild thunder secret realm. When Xiaoyang felt that the lightning element in his body had some abnormalities, he also understood this point. If this was the case, this matter would be really difficult to handle. In an instant, Bai Jian also let out a scream. Under the attack of the lightning, he could not resist at all. He tried his best to gather a breath to fight to the death with Lei Dingyin, but it was broken just like that. Lei Dingyin's smile became more and more cruel. Looking at Bai Jian being beaten by the lightning to the point where he wished he was dead and his life began to dissipate, his heart was extremely carefree. All the problems lie with the lightning-repelling pill. With the lightning-repelling pill, you are invincible. Why did you hide the poison in the lightning-repelling pill? Xiaoyang was somewhat puzzled in his heart and asked directly. Lei Dingyin's gaze also fell on Xiaoyang. This was the person he needed to kill. The reason was very simple. If all the medicinal power in the lightning-repelling pill was forced out, it naturally could not be used as the source. In this way, although he could forcefully leave the wild Thunder Secret Realm, he could be protected from the wild lightning attacks. A dead man doesn't need to know anything more. Lei Dingyin's voice also became very cold as he said. When Xiaoyang heard this, his expression did not change at all. Everything was within his expectations. However, looking at Bai Jian's miserable appearance, he was helpless. However, after letting Bai Jian suffer, he would know how to guard against others in the future. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. Your so-called warm invitation is just to let outsiders be your stepping stone. What a thousand thunder realm. It's really despicable. Xiaoyang said and shrugged helplessly. His impression of the Thousand Thunder Realm was also extremely bad. However, Lei Dingyin did not say much. Instead, he directly formed a hand seal. Immediately, Xiaoyang also felt the remnant poison begin to circulate. His eyebrows involuntarily furrowed slightly. This fellow, one step at a time, was really orderly.